Chapter 1173. The silent fire tribulation fell. An invisible flame appeared on Lady Fenghua's body. At the same time, the same fire fell on Yang Chen's body. Because of the addition of Yang Chen, in fact, the power of the fire tribulation was slightly greater. This was very fair. There was one more person to resist, and the power was naturally greater. Lady Fenghua wanted to calculate Yang Chen. In fact, it was also increasing the difficulty of her own tribulation. However, it seemed that this, which was quite sure, otherwise she would not take such a risk to secretly deal with Yang Chen. Lady Fenghua could no longer play any tricks at this moment, and went all out to fight against the tribulation. The degree of seriousness was definitely the first time in her history. On Yang Chen's side, he directly used the Yin-Yang heaven-burning fire and began to contend with the Yin fire tribulation. It was not entirely correct to say that it was contending. Just like when Master Ancestor Wang Yong used the Yin fire tribulation to temper his own flame, Yang Chen was actually doing the same thing. If it was not caused by oneself, the Yin fire tribulation would only hurt and would not have the effect of tempering the body. Yang Chen could only use it to strengthen his own Yin-Yang heaven-burning fire. With Yang Chen's cultivation of the powerful body of the sea strength realm, the ordinary Yin fire tribulation could not hurt him at all. In addition, Yang Chen's fire control was excellent. Soon the power of the Yin fire was led to the Yin-Yang heaven-burning fire and began to merge and temper the two fire dragons. In the eyes of Yang Chen, the Yin fire tribulation caused by Lady Fenghua was slightly stronger than the ordinary Yin fire tribulation and above the average level. This also meant that the strength of Lady Fenghua was above the average level. However, compared with the power of the old tree, Demon Gui, Shanyo's tribulation, the difference was not a little bit. The cultivation base between the two was also no less than 10 times. Yang Chen was now tempering his own Yin-Yang heaven-burning fire, while imagining what it would be like if he triggered the tribulation. At the time of the annual Thunder tribulation, it was already different from everyone else. The power was so great that even Gao Yugong Sunling, Shi Shanshan, and Sun Qingxue turned pale. Now that the great Yin and Yang five-element secret art was complete, the power would definitely make people more stunned. The process of crossing the tribulation was not long. Soon Lady Fenghua survived the 9th layer of Yin fire tribulation. Her body was tempered by the Yin fire, and her cultivation base directly entered the ranks of the Deshang stage. When Lady Fenghua finally finished all the process and looked at Yang Chen had also just taken the Yin-Yang heaven-burning fire into his body. When facing the tribulation, Madame Fenghua had no time to be distracted, and she didn't know what Yang Chen had just done. Okay. Yang Chen's face was calm, as if there was no embarrassment in the scope of the Yin fire tribulation. He asked casually, as if the two people were talking about ordinary things. Okay. Lady Fenghua was a little nervous. Yang Chen acted as if nothing had happened, which made her heart beat fast. Her own little thoughts may have been hidden at the beginning, but as long as the Yin fire tribulation fell, how could Yang Chen not find it? Fortunately, Lady Fenghua thought that she had already crossed the tribulation to Shang stage, and her cultivation base was definitely 10 times higher than before, so although she was nervous, she did not panic. Anyway, she did not break the oath. Yang Chen wanted to blame her. She just forgot about it. Who didn't have a bad memory? How does it feel to be in the Deshang stage? Yang Chen asked with a smile, and he couldn't see anything unpleasant about being calculated. Do you want to try it? To be honest, Lady Fenghua really had such a plan. She had crossed the tribulation Deshang stage. If she was still treated as a slave by Yuanying stage junior, how could her face be justified? She originally wanted to weigh Yang Chen, and Yang Chen's proposal was exactly what she wanted. Then please be careful, master, Lady Fenghua said with a holy smile on her face, but her hands were not polite. The flying sword had already been cut to Yang Chen. Yang Chen's figure stood in the same place. His feet did not even move, and his eyes did not look at the flying sword controlled by Lady Fenghua. He just stretched out a hand and grabbed in the direction of Lady Fenghua. Ding, a clear sound sounded. Lady Fenghua's flying sword had not yet had time to cut on Yang Chen's body. A golden bell phantom suddenly appeared outside Yang Chen's body, and then the flying sword was directly bounced back. Not to mention killing Yang Chen, she didn't even touch the corner of Yang Chen's clothes. And Yang Chen's hand still maintained that action. It seemed that there was still a distance of a few feet between the two. If Yang Chen's arm didn't grow longer, he couldn't touch Lady Fenghua at all. However, Lady Fenghua's expression changed greatly. An invisible suction directly pulled her body, forcefully pulling her towards Yang Chen. No matter how hard Lady Fenghua tried to control her body, she couldn't change the situation at all. She could only watch in vain as Yang Chen got closer and closer, and Yang Chen's hand also got bigger and bigger. Whoosh! Yang Chen's big hand grabbed Lady Fenghua's snow-white neck and forcibly lifted Lady Fenghua's body up. It seemed that as long as he exerted a bit of strength, Lady Fenghua's soft neck would be broken. Unknowingly, Yang Chen's other hand had already grabbed Lady Fenghua's flying sword. Lady Fenghua was so shocked that she didn't notice it. Right in front of Lady Fenghua, Yang Chen used his other hand to easily knead Lady Fenghua's flying sword into a metal ball. Lady Fenghua understood that it was completely physical strength, without the slightest use of spiritual power. She knew very well that her neck was definitely not as hard as her flying sword. If Yang Chen wanted to kill her, it would be easier than killing a fly. Lady Fenghua's heart was full of despair, and there was an unconcealable look of horror on her face. It was not easy for her to cross the Mayana tribulation, but she couldn't even resist one move from Yang Chen, and this was under the situation where Yang Chen's feet did not leave the ground. If Yang Chen really wanted to kill her, would she have a chance to escape? I like smart people, but I don't like smart guys. Yang Chen's hand only stayed on Lady Fenghua's neck for a moment. Then he released her and said coldly, "Master, forgive me." Lady Fenghua did not dare to have other thoughts. As soon as her body could move, she immediately worshipped at the feet of Yang Chen again. Fenghua will not dare again. This time, Lady Fenghua really did not dare to have any other thoughts. Even in fire tribulation, Yang Chen was not afraid, and she couldn't even stop one move from the Deshang stage. Lady Fenghua was a smart person, not a fool, and naturally knew what this meant. Lady Fenghua lowered her head, but she could still feel the pressure brought to her by Yang Chen's substantial gaze. Finally, Lady Fenghua seemed to have made up her mind and said to Yang Chen, "Please accept Fenghua's chastity." Chapter 1174. To be honest, Lady Fenghua's words did give Yang Chen a big shock. What a joke! The famous Lady Fenghua still had chastity. For Yang Chen to believe this kind of thing, it was as ridiculous as believing that he was really cultivating the jade cultivation technique. However, the words that Lady Fenghua said at this time, with such an attitude, couldn't be fake. No one dared to use their own life to fool Yang Chen at this time. Lady Fenghua definitely didn't dare to. "I'm cultivating the 1,000-color spiritual technique." Since Lady Fenghua had already said what she just said, she naturally wouldn't hide the reason behind it. She spilled it out like beans from a bamboo tube. Yang Chen had heard of this 1,000-color spiritual technique in his previous life, but he only knew that it was a very profound mental technique of the demonic sect. It could only be cultivated by virgins, but he didn't know much about it. Yang Chen's understanding of the demonic sect was still relatively limited. With Lady Fenghua's explanation, Yang Chen finally understood what this 1,000-color spiritual technique was all about. Yang Chen had always thought that Lady Fenghua cultivated the yin-yang harmony technique of yin-yang demon school, which was a very typical dual cultivation technique. He didn't expect her to actually cultivate the 1,000-color spiritual technique. This spiritual technique was also one of the core mental techniques of yin-yang demon school, and it had to be cultivated by virgins. However, the mental techniques of the demonic sect had a very strange situation. This mental technique was just like the misunderstanding of Yang Chen's jade cultivation technique in the past. Similarly, one couldn't lose one's virginity before a certain stage. In fact, if one could always maintain their virginity the power of this mental technique would become greater and greater. However, there was a drawback in the later stages of cultivation, which was that it would change the temperament of the cultivator, causing others to be captivated by her beauty at first glance. Many people were bewitched by Lady Fenghua's beauty, but in fact, no one could truly become a guest of Lady Fenghua. This was another special characteristic of the Thousand Colors Spirit technique. The more passionate they were, the more they would be bewitched by the Myriad Spirit technique. In the end, those who were bewitched thought that they had already made love with Lady Fenghua, but in reality, it was just their own hallucination. The reason why Lady Fenghua dared to say that she still had her chastity in front of Yangchun was because of this reason. However, the demonic mental cultivation method was the demonic mental cultivation method. Sometimes when it charmed others, Lady Fenghua herself would also be affected. The long-accumulated lust could not be vented, but it also led to her cultivation to the peak of yuanying stage. Because of the state of mind, she could no longer advance. It wasn't until Yang Qian used the help of the questioning inner heart pill that Lady Fenghua completely figured it out and truly entered the Deshang stage. The reason why Lady Fenghua would offer her chastity to Yang Qian at this time was because of the last feature of the Thousand Colors Spirit technique. That was, after losing her virginity, the cultivator would be loyal to the person she had lost her virginity to, and naturally, she would never betray. Under normal circumstances, the witches who practiced the Thousand Colors Spirit technique would kill each other after losing their virginity. From then on, the figure of their lover would remain in their hearts, and they would never be affected by the tribulation of worldly affairs. The power of this cultivation method would gradually emerge. The more it went on, the more powerful the effect of the cultivation method would be. The charm was boundless, and the cultivation of the witches who practiced it would also get higher and higher. Hearing this, Yang Chun finally understood the power of this Thousand Colors Spirit technique. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The demonic mental cultivation method was the demonic mental cultivation method. There was actually such a cultivation method for killing one's lover. If this was in the Tao sect, it would definitely be a role model to exterminate demons and defend the Tao. Now that Lady Fenghua wanted to offer her chastity to Yang Chun, and she couldn't kill Yang Chun, this also meant that she could only listen to Yang Chen's manipulation for the rest of her life. If he wanted her to go east, she would never go west. If he wanted her to be a big dog, she would never chase a chicken. This was even more powerful than the great vow of the heart demon. After all, the great vow of the heart demon couldn't be fulfilled on the spot, and the word love was always in one's heart. If I really practiced the great jade cultivation method back then and couldn't resist the temptation, would I have become the lover of your heart? Yang Chen suddenly thought of the game he played in the demonic sex territory a long time ago and asked with great interest. Yes, Lady Fenghua was still kneeling on the ground, and she didn't even raise her head, but she answered. After so many years, there's no one that you like? Lady Fenghua had been unwilling to lose her virginity. This must be the reason, but Yang Chun still asked out of curiosity. Master, I have seen a lot of men's ugly behavior. Although Lady Fenghua replied while kneeling, Yang Chun could still hear the disdain in her words. At that time, I only felt that Master practiced the great jade cultivation method and was lustful but not obscene, so I was tempted. At this time, Lady Fenghua definitely didn't hide it. Under the temptation of Lady Fenghua, there were probably no masters in the demonic sect who could control themselves, so it was normal for them to be ugly. This could also explain why, in that situation, Madame Fenghua also claimed to be a pure girl. Why did she have to play a charming game with Yang Chun? Probably in the eyes of Lady Fenghua, Yang Chun, who had never been touched by a single leaf among thousands of flowers, was her good match. In particular, the great jade cultivation method was good for women. Not only could it improve their cultivation, but it could also keep their appearance young. More importantly, if Yang Chun really practiced the great jade cultivation method, he would still be a virgin, which met the requirements of Lady Fenghua's lover. After his death, he could let Lady Fenghua worry about him for a lifetime. Do you think I'm this kind of person? Yang Chun suddenly laughed. He gently lifted Lady Fenghua's shoulder with his feet and made her straighten up. He asked with a smile, "Am I the kind of person who needs to use this method to control my subordinates?" "I don't dare," Lady Fanghua hurriedly explained. "I have just practiced to this point and have entered a bottleneck. If I want to continue, I must see through the tribulation of worldly affairs. I beg Master to fulfill my wish." Lady Fanghua's words were not perfunctory. The difficulty of practicing the demonic sex mental cultivation method was unimaginable to others. Lady Fanghua was also a proud person. Even if she was willing to be a slave, she had never been tempted. If Yang Chun had not only wanted to refuse the initiative of the 7 stunning beauties of the 3 major sects, he would not have been able to move Lady Fanghua's heart. At this moment, since Yang Chun was also in her eyes, it was difficult for others to replace him. So Madame Fanghua wanted to strike while the iron was hot, so she could see through the tribulation of the mortal world. Not to mention that her cultivation base would also be able to be smooth sailing in the future. It would no longer be full of obstacles. "Master, please fulfill my wish." Seeing that Yang Chun did not speak, Lady Fanghua kowtowed again. Chapter 1175. "I can't give you any status." Yang Chun sighed and said with a bitter smile, "This servant doesn't dare to ask for anything. I only want Master in my heart." Madame Fanghua said in a submissive tone, and once again pleaded, "I beg the Master, this slave will work hard in the future to thank the Master's grace. If you can't kill me, can you see through the love tribulations?" Yang Chen reached out to pull Lady Fanghua up and asked casually, "I can't kill Master. This servant just can't reach the great perfection." Lady Fanghua didn't follow Yang Chen's words at all. Instead, she spoke her actual thoughts. If this servant can't kill Master after attacking him 3 times, then there's no need to kill him anymore. Falling in love with Master is also a way to reach the great perfection. This time, Lady Fanghua had indeed grasped Yang Chen's pulse. Facing Lady Fanghua, Yang Chun was absolutely confident that he could defeat her, even if she saw through the love tribulations of the mortal world. Therefore, telling the truth made Yang Chun look at Lady Fanghua in a different light. "Are you sure you won't regret it?" Yang Chun confirmed with Lady Fanghua very seriously. "If you can't kill me, then according to what you said, you can fall in love with me for the rest of your life. You can't disobey me. This servant will never regret it." Madame Fanghua's face also showed a decisive look, and she replied resolutely, "I asked the Master to help." Yang Chen didn't speak this time. Instead, he reached out and hooked Lady Fanghua's chin, making her pretty face look up along with Yang Chen's finger. Madame Fanghua did not speak in her mouth, but her eyes had already shot a soft and entangled gaze. Looking at this delicate face, Yang Chen's mind was churning wildly. Should he accept this witch? The demon sect was a powerful force in the spirit realm and celestial realm. If he wanted to fight against the Black Heaven sect, he would have to unite many forces. Since he had already made friends with Yi Jinxiong from Wuji Demon School, there was no harm in having another force of his own at Yin Yang Demon School. With Lady Fanghua here, Yang Chun could get a strong support without paying anything. After thinking about it, Yang Chun decided to accept Lady Fanghua's loyalty. After all, it was impossible for Yin Yang Demon School to collude with the Taishimen's Black Heaven sect. The enemy of an enemy was a friend. Who? A flying shuttle appeared out of thin air, wrapped around Yang Chun and Lady Fanghua, and then quickly burrowed deep into the ground. Inside the flying shuttle near the edge of the magma, Lady Fanghua, who was wearing an almost transparent chiffon, carefully helped Yang Chun take off his robe with infinite innocence in her eyes. Each and every one of her casual movements revealed her snow-white skin. The faintly discernible scene made one's blood boil involuntarily. "Master, please have mercy." Madame Fanghua's soft and beautiful body was lying on the bed. Her 2 jade arms were hooked around Yang Chen's neck. Her breath was like orchids, and she said in a sweet voice. After she finished speaking, she closed her eyes and waited for Yang Chen's favor. At the critical moment, Yang Chun, who had already fallen into lust, suddenly had a clear face, turned his head to the side, and smiled. If the 1,000-color spell is only this kind of charm effect, it is estimated that it is still useless to me. Wherever Yang Chen's gaze landed, Lady Fenghua's shocked face suddenly appeared in a place that should have been empty. And under Yang Chen's body, the naked body was still twisting with passion. Master's eyes are really sharp. I'm convinced. As Lady Fenghua spoke, the body under Yang Chen disappeared in an instant. With a look of admiration, Lady Fenghua's body wrapped around Yang Chen's body from the side. Myriad colors. Does it mean that there are thousands of incarnations? Yang Chen smiled again and asked casually. He stretched out his hand towards an empty direction and directly pulled a hot body into his arms. As long as the real body is not discovered, once the good thing is done, I will be completely fascinated by you, right? Lady Fenghua, who suddenly appeared in his arms, couldn't suppress the horror in her eyes, but her body was like a snake moving rhythmically on Yang Chen's body. Yang Chen's hands held this body firmly in his arms, feeling the delicate skin up and down, but he said as if he was talking about something irrelevant. I allow you to do it 3 times after, but it doesn't mean that you also have 3 chances before. Things don't happen more than 3 times. This is already the 2nd time. If there is one more time, you will never be able to see through the tribulation of love. Master, please have mercy. This time, Lady Fenghua didn't say anything more. She just repeated the sweet voice, and then took the initiative to wrap around Yang Chen's body. After the first break, Lady Fenghua seemed to carefully put away the white handkerchief with bloodstains under her body, and then threw it into Yang Chen's arms again. Perhaps it was because of the cultivation method. The aura of Lady Fenghua before and after was completely different. If there were still traces of acting in front of Yang Chen, then there was a joy from the heart, as if she had already owned the world in Yang Chen's arms. This invisible emotional change was clearly felt by Yang Chen, who had experienced countless demonic qi tempering. As Lady Fenghua said, she had now completely regarded Yang Chen as her lover, and she wished she could devote herself to Yang Chen. She had just crossed the tribulation, and her cultivation was not stable. But after this experience, Yang Chen could clearly find that Lady Fenghua's cultivation had improved a lot almost in a short time. Within 2 days after the tribulation, she had already rushed to the middle stage of the Yuanying stage. Such a rapid improvement in cultivation, it had to be said that this myriad colors spiritual method was indeed different. However, the demon sect's mental cultivation method was extremely strange, and this was not the great perfection. Yang Chen wanted to know what would happen when Lady Fenghua failed to kill him 3 times and entered the great perfection. After going back, your status should be improved. Yang Chen hugged the naked body in his arms and ordered, "You don't have to do anything else, just cultivate on your own on weekdays, and then draw more disciples of Yin Yang Demon School to be used by you. I will give you 2,000 kilograms of upper-grade spirit stones, plus a batch of medicinal pills, which is enough for you to squander. Master, rest assured, this slave will definitely do it for you." Lady Fenghua promised, and there was a kind of joy in her tone. It seemed that being able to do things for her lover was her great joy. "Your flying sword is garbage. I have destroyed it." Yang Chen directly took out a top-grade flying sword obtained in the secret plane of the polar wasteland of Taishimen and handed it to Lady Fenghua. "This is used as your natal flying sword." Madame Fenghua was overjoyed to receive it, and the joy was overflowing. In addition, after going back, pay attention to who is practicing the Devil Heart Sutra. Yang Chen ordered again, "If there is any news, pass the news directly to the people of the Wine Immortal house." Yes, although she didn't know why, Lady Fenghua still agreed without objection. Chapter 1176. Lady Fenghua's reply was straightforward and didn't make Yang Chen suspicious at all. Just as Yang Chen was about to give his next command, something strange happened. Madame Fenghua, who was naked in her arms, suddenly seemed to have turned into countless sharp long needles, and it was inserted into the big and small acupoints of Yang Chen's body. Because of the entanglement between the two of them, Lady Fenghua's hair was already scattered all over Yang Chen's body. It was impossible to defend against this sudden attack. No one would have thought that there would be such a danger. Yang Chen didn't even have time to react and was hit. Lady Fenghua's attack was ruthless, but her two naked arms were still hugging Yang Qin's body tightly, as if she was hugging her lover. Painful tears started to flow from the corner of her eyes. Why? Why do you want a Demon Heart Sutra? Madame Fenghua shed tears and cried in pain. You want to improve the cultivation base of this slave? Is it in order to cultivate this cultivation method that is harmful to people? Do you have to force this slave to do it? As an elder of the Yin-Yang Demon School, even though she hadn't cultivated the Demon Heart Sutra, Lady Fenghua had heard of it. Yang Shan actually wanted her to find someone who cultivated the Demon Heart Sutra. It was almost certain that it was for Yang Qin's own sake. This was the conclusion that Lady Fenghua came to after putting herself in his shoes. Hence, even though she was in pain, she still chose to make a move at this moment. After all, cultivating the 1,000 glamour technique required one to fall in love with someone and then kill them. Regardless of what happened now, her body belonged to Yang Qin and her heart belonged to Yang Qin. Hence, she would let everything disappear with Yang Qin's death. This would also allow Lady Fenghua's 1,000 glamour technique to reach the great perfection realm. A hair attack, especially at such a time, was something that not many people could have thought of. In addition, with a beauty in his arms and a warm and fragrant body, who would have thought that the strands of black hair that had brought him supreme pleasure not long ago would actually turn into a deadly hook at this moment? Yang Qin's body stiffened. Lady Fenghua hugged Yang Qin tightly, as if she was hugging her most cherished lover. In fact, that was basically the case. Feeling the life in Yang Qin's body slowly depleting, she leaned her beautiful head on Yang Qin's chest, quietly listening to Yang Qin's heartbeat slowly weakening and slowing down. Madame Fenghua knew in her heart how powerful she was. This was not an attack like an intrinsic flying sword, but an object that belonged to him. This killer move could be said to be Lady Fenghua's last card to save her life. Using it on Yang Qin, she had already predicted Yang Qin's ending. No one could survive this move of hers. Lady Fenghua could feel that all her hair had drilled into the meridians of Yang Qin's body. All of Yang Qin's meridians were completely destroyed by her attack. Even if Yang Qin had the ability to transcend the heavens, he would not be able to escape death. After being hit by this move, he would not immediately lose his vitality, but his cultivation would immediately disappear. Then, in extreme pleasure, he would slowly die in the arms of Lady Fenghua. This was also the last feeling that Lady Fenghua could leave for Yang Qin. Now, she was in the pain of killing her lover with her own hands, preparing to welcome the completion of the 1,000 Colors spiritual technique. However, no one knew why, but Yang Qin's heartbeat was still so strong, showing no signs of weakening. Although Yang Qin's body was stiff, it still maintained enough elasticity. This situation lasted for a while before Lady Fenghua realized that something was wrong. So comfortable. Yang Qin finally let out a long breath, and his stiff body began to slowly relax. His face was full of satisfaction, as if he had just experienced an easy and thorough horse slaughter, and his muscles also relaxed. There was an indescribable comfort in his voice. He tightened his arms, hugged Lady Fenghua, and praised her. Your skills are really good. Lady Fenghua's beautiful eyes widened, and her whole body directly froze in Yang Qin's arms, not daring to move. No one knew the power of her move better than Lady Fenghua. Not only did Yang Qin easily take it without any defense, but he also commented that it was really comfortable. Was he still human? This is the first time, right? After Yang Qin praised Lady Fenghua, he stretched out his other hand to lift Lady Fenghua's chin, facing her beautiful face to himself, and asked with a smile. Under Yang Qin's question, Lady Fenghua nodded unconsciously. Until now, she had not completely accepted the fact that her killer move had no effect at all. She looked at Yang Qin as if she was looking at a terrifying monster that she did not know. Recently, some people in Taishaman asked Drunken Immortal House to find people who practice the unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra. I happen to get this news, and I want to know what they want. Until now, Yang Qin explained to Lady Fenghua why he wanted to find a demon expert who practiced the unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra. The Taishaman were the leaders of the Tao sects, and naturally, they were the great enemies of the demon sex. Hearing that Yang Chun just wanted to know what the Taishaman wanted to do, Lady Fanghua could not help but turn from sadness to joy. Suddenly, she could not care about anything else and plunged into Yang Chen's arms. It turned out that her master and her lover did not want to sacrifice herself to practice the unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra. This was what made Lady Fanghua the happiest. Also, even her own Deshang stage cultivation base was not the opponent of his blow. Why use this kind of method that was not very clever in the demon sex to improve? Madame Fanghua really thought too much. It had to be said that women who were immersed in the river of love were the stupidest. Usually, they would not think logically and rationally, and it was completely out of their own perspective. Sometimes bad things were also good things in her eyes, and sometimes, obviously, a trivial thing was a big deal in her eyes. Even if Lady Fanghua was already a master of the Mahayana stage, her performance in this regard was not much different from those silly women who fell in love. Yang Chun could not understand the mind of this woman, but this did not prevent Yang Chun from completely conquering Lady Fanghua. When she learned that Yang Chun just wanted to know the purpose of the Taishaman, Lady Fanghua had once again lost herself in the warm arms of Yang Chun. Because of this inexplicable misunderstanding, Yang Chun was attacked. If it were not for Yang Chen's high cultivation, he might have to die this time. Madame Fanghua, this witch was really hard to guard against. Who knew that she would use that kind of strange method to make a move in that situation? However, it was also a small disaster, so that Yang Chun firmly remembered that he could not relax his vigilance whenever he was with the witch. Chapter 1177. As soon as the small misunderstanding was resolved, Lady Fanghua was once again intoxicated in Yang Chen's warm embrace. She took the initiative to seek pleasure and did not want to waste a single moment. She was very clear that Yang Chun did not love her, but because of the spiritual method she cultivated, she fell hopelessly in love with Yang Chun and was dead set on him. Even if she could only stay in Yang Chen's arms for a blink of an eye, she was willing to do so. Of course, Yang Chun would not refuse the beauty's request at this moment. He even took the initiative to take the initiative. It had to be said that Lady Fanghua was famous for her beauty. Even though she was still a virgin, the charm technique of demonic sect had been cultivated to the extreme. This time, because she misunderstood Yang Chun, she used all her skills and completely dedicated herself to her beloved to make up for the guilt in her heart. Yang Chun immediately enjoyed the taste of gentleness that he could not enjoy when he was with his 4 wives. Lady Fanghua simply took out her trump card and came up with all kinds of tricks, which made Yang Chun so happy that he forgot to leave. In a beautiful moan of extreme pleasure, Lady Fanghua did not know how many times she had climbed to the peak of happiness. Her body slumped like a puddle of mud, and she no longer had the strength to withstand Yang Chen's attack. Yang Chun himself was also sent to the peak of bliss by this beautiful witch. It was as if he was in the clouds, and everything in the outside world had almost nothing to do with Yang Chun. Seeing that Yang Chun was also sent to bliss by her, Lady Fanghua, who was lying on the bed, suddenly had a look of intoxication and reluctance in her beautiful eyes. Then, just as Yang Chun was still enjoying the aftertaste of happiness, she launched an attack. The sudden stab of divine sense, in addition to the sudden increase of suction from Lady Fanghua's lower body, was a wonderful move that brought Yang Chun supreme pleasure. At the same time, it was a killer move that sent Yang Chun to the hell of bliss. With Lady Fanghua's common sense, men, no matter who they were, would not have any defense in such a situation. Especially at the moment of the peak, it was a wholehearted enjoyment. No one could still maintain their vigilance at that moment. This was also the best chance for her to make a move. Madame Fanghua, who had cultivated the myriad red spirit method, was not reconciled to the fact that the spirit method she cultivated was only a half-baked one. Even if she has dedicated herself to Yang Chun, even if her heart has been tied to Yang Chun, but with such a concern, she would rather be haunted by Yang Chun after his death than live. Lady Fanghua was a smart person. Yang Chun could easily capture her after she passed the Fire tribulation, which also meant that Yang Chen's cultivation efficiency was much higher than hers. At this rate, the longer the time dragged, the greater the gap between Yang Chen and her, and the lower her chances of winning. In such a situation, the sooner she started, the higher the success rate. And Yang Chen, who had just experienced an assassination, would never think that she would make a move at such a critical moment. One was deliberate, the other was enjoying the aftertaste of the orgasm, and did not think that Lady Fanghua would do it again after she had just failed. Lady Fanghua's attack, Yang Chen aided. Lady Fanghua only felt that a huge and jaw-dropping spiritual power rushed into her body along the part where the two lower bodies were connected, instantly making her cultivation once again rush to another realm. The pleasure brought by the warm spiritual power once again made Lady Fanghua involuntarily hold Yang Chen's body, and the tears in her eyes flowed down uncontrollably. The most powerful and secretive move in a myriad color spirit method was to collect Yang to make up for Yin, coupled with the sudden stab of spiritual awareness. Even if Yang Chen had a great ability, in this situation where his spiritual power had been sucked away by Lady Fanghua, he could not turn the tables. In other words, this time, Yang Chen was dead. After the start, Lady Fanghua once again felt the pain of killing her beloved with her own hands. While her heart was twisted by a knife, the myriad colors spirit method was more and more perfect. Yang Chen's body has been trembling, enjoying the final pleasure, and a majestic spiritual power was continuously passed from the part of the two to the body of Lady Fanghua. Even with Lady Fanghua's Deshang stage cultivation base, she felt that this spiritual power was a bit too much. Shocked by the abundance of spiritual power in Yang Chen's body, Lady Fanghua also somewhat understood why Yang Chen was only in the middle Yuanying stage, but he could resist her, a master of the Deshang stage. With this batch of spiritual power, it was enough for Lady Fanghua to push her cultivation base back to the middle Deshang stage in a short period of time. There was no such thing as step-by-step progress in the demon sections. What they pursued was the rapid improvement of their cultivation base, and the final difference was only the state of mind. But as long as the myriad colors spirit method reached the great perfection realm, what else could confuse Lady Fanghua? Even her beloved could be killed in the moment of bliss. What else could stop the footsteps of Lady Fanghua? At this moment, Lady Fanghua no longer believed that Yang Chen could still turn the tables. Even the spiritual power of his whole body was absorbed. Was there a more complete failure than this? Of course, for Yang Chen, the result of failure was death. There was no other possibility. Lady Fanghua's tears were like a fountain, flowing down wildly, letting her kill her beloved twice in a short period of less than a day. For the Lady Fanghua, who was really moved, it was also an unbearable thing. She wanted to hug Yang Chen tightly, watch Yang Chen die in her arms, feel Yang Chen slowly become cold in her arms, so that she could completely remember Yang Chen in her heart and never forget him. The surging spiritual power lasted for half an incense stick of time. Even Lady Fanghua herself was stimulated to orgasm again. This made her very happy. Not only was she happy that her cultivation would improve in a short period of time, but she was also happy that Yang Chen died in bliss, not in severe pain. This was the only thing she could do for Yang Chen now. Finally, when she could no longer feel the spiritual power from Yang Chen, Lady Fanghua's tears almost flowed out. She didn't know what to say, but her hands held Yang Chen's body tightly, as if she wanted to become one with him, as if she didn't want to let go until death. "You seductive little goblin, I was almost played to death by you." Yang Chen's body was stiff for a while, and suddenly he took a long breath and said these words. Lady Fanghua's whole person was like seeing a ghost. She looked at Yang Chen dumbfoundedly. If it weren't for the close contact between their bodies, she could feel Yang Chen's heartbeat, breathing, and body temperature. Otherwise, she would have thought that Yang Chen's body exploded. Yang Chen, who was attacked by her at that moment and had absorbed so much spiritual power, was still alive and kicking like this? Chapter 1178. Lady Fanghua had been completely sluggish there, and she couldn't even speak. She couldn't figure out how Yang Chen was still alive and still so energetic. It's so satisfying. Yang Chun took a long breath. It seemed that he was still savoring the wonderful taste that Lady Fanghua had just brought to him, and there was no anger in his tone that Lady Fanghua took the opportunity to plot against him. The experience in the demon continent made Yang Chun vigilant almost all the time, especially in the face of Lady Fanghua, this witch. He never regarded Lady Fanghua as an innocent girl, and Lady Fanghua did not disappoint Yang Chun's thoughts. Even when the two were intimate, Yang Chun would not forget this. Sure enough, just when Yang Chun should theoretically be at his weakest defense, or even when he should be the most unprepared, Lady Fanghua's killing move came. The sudden attack intensity of the spiritual awareness stab was at the level of the middle and late Deshang stage. In such a situation, ordinary people would definitely be successfully plotted against. Even Yang Chun did not expect that Lady Fanghua, who had just been promoted to the Deshang stage, would have such a powerful spiritual awareness attack. However, the accident was an accident, but this kind of attack was almost like an itch for Yang Chun. Even his sea of consciousness couldn't be shaken, let alone hurt him. On the contrary, the suction from the lower part of his body made Yang Chun almost unable to hold it for a moment. Fortunately, Yang Chun's cultivation was all of the original spirit power, plus the mystery of the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art. So he was able to control it, and did not let Lady Fanghua succeed. But at that moment, a thought suddenly appeared in Yang Chun's mind. As soon as this thought appeared, it was like the temptation of the devil, and he could no longer get rid of it. For a very long time, Yang Chun and his wives had not regarded diligently cultivating their spiritual power as their main homework. Instead, they spent most of their time refining and purifying their spiritual power. Li Qing's appearance made them all realize that if they could condense and purify their spiritual power in advance, even if it was just a little purer than others, it would still be an advantage in the future. One had to know that the higher one's cultivation was, the more effort it would take to purify it in the future. Nowadays, most of the cultivators in the mortal world were pursuing a breakthrough in their spiritual power so that they could reach the realm of ascension as soon as possible. This goal was so difficult that very few people would spend a lot of time on the purity and quality of spiritual power. However, for Yang Chun's family of 5, their cultivation aptitude determined that even if they continued to cultivate step by step, transcending the tribulation and ascending to immortality was only a matter of course. Since there was no need to worry about ascending, then pursuing a higher quality of spiritual power was not so unacceptable. Everyone was purifying their spiritual power, and so was Yang Chun. However, the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art was cultivated, and the Yin and Yang reverse the 5 elements could greatly improve the quality of spiritual power. In this regard, Yang Chun had unique conditions, and even Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were incomparable. Therefore, there was no doubt that Yang Chun's spiritual power was the purest among them. But even so, Yang Chun could not reach the level of Li Cheng. In the mortal world, he did not experience the baptism of the Yin fire tribulation and the black wind tribulation, and the outside world did not have the super strong spiritual pressure of the spiritual world and immortal world. If he wanted to reach Li Cheng's realm, he did not even need to think about it. He did not know how Li Cheng did it. Yang Chun was envious, but he did not belittle himself. There were many masters in the world, and it was not something that a guy with the memory of his previous life could fully understand. Originally, Yang Chun thought that his spiritual power purification could only do this for the time being, but Lady Fanghua's myriad color spirit method contained the method of collecting Yang to nourish Yin, which gave Yang Chun another way. In fact, if the cultivation was pure to the extreme, this kind of method of collecting Yang to nourish Yin was of no use. Yang Chun was aware of this, and he boldly let Lady Fanghua absorb spiritual power from his body. In Yang Chun's calculation, what could be absorbed by Lady Fanghua was definitely the impure spiritual power that had not been condensed to a certain extent. As long as the core part of pure spiritual power was not lost, there would be no loss for Yang Chun. On the contrary, The part of spiritual power that Lady Fanghua had painstakingly absorbed was the part that Yang Chun had been struggling to find a way to purify, but could not get. Anyway, it would be lost in the process of his own condensation in the future. It was better to let Lady Fanghua absorb it now, and it could be regarded as fulfilling this which could barely be regarded as Yang Chen's woman. As Yang Chun expected, the part of pure spiritual power that Yang Chun was most proud of was firmly flowing freely in the meridians. It did not care about the powerful suction from the lower body. The relatively impure spiritual power around the core spiritual power was attracted by this powerful suction and quickly rushed into the body of Lady Fanghua. Even if Lady Fanghua was reborn, she could not calculate that her spiritual power of collecting yang to nourish yin was actually deliberately absorbed by Yang Chun. When Lady Fanghua absorbed the powerful spiritual power and thought that her plan was successful, she did not know that Yang Chun was even happier than her in his heart. Even if Yang Chen's spiritual power was impure and not pure enough, it was still the original spiritual power, and it was the spiritual power that had been condensed through the reverse yin and yang 5 elements. For Lady Fanghua, it was simply the most powerful tonic. The cultivation method of the Demon Gate determined that they would not pursue steady progress for the time being. If they could quickly improve their cultivation, they would do it as fast as possible. This powerful spiritual power directly supplemented the source of Lady Fanghua, and even improved the quality of Lady Fanghua's own spiritual power. The reason why Lady Fanghua felt that the spiritual power was endless was that Yang Chen's spiritual power cultivation was so powerful that it was unimaginable to the world. The Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements secrets had 10 kinds of spiritual power, and each of them was divided into a part, which was also a large spiritual power flow. It was in this situation where one was willing to fight and the other was willing to take, that the two of them completed this cooperation that seemed impossible to others. There was no discussion in advance, but there was no deviation in the process. It was perfect. For Yang Chun, there were many benefits. First, this was the second time that Lady Fanghua made a move. As long as she could take it again, Lady Fanghua would be able to achieve a perfect state of mind. Second, Yang Chen's own cultivation had become extremely pure, and it was at least 20% purer than before. Of course, this did not count the wonderful enjoyment of Yang Chun in the process. Similarly, for Lady Fanghua, it was also a great benefit. In addition to not killing Yang Chun, she absorbed this spiritual power that Yang Chun did not want, but it was much purer and mellower than her cultivation, so that her cultivation base improved again and directly rushed to the peak of the early Deshang stage. Chapter 1179. It's the second time. Yang Chun looked down at the witch who was still stunned and said with a smile. Lady Fanghua responded a little stupidly. She still couldn't imagine how Yang Chun escaped her two-pronged killing move. That was her most powerful killer. Yang Chun, who was in the land of gentleness. How could he still talk so easily now? No one could imagine how terrifying Yang Chen's spiritual awareness cultivation base was now at the 9th grade human immortal stage. Not to mention the spiritual awareness attack of the late Deshang stage condensed by Lady Fanghua. Even if such an attack was 10 times stronger, it would be the same result against Yang Chun. There would be no accident. Absolute strength brought about absolute shock. Lady Fanghua even had an illusion that she did not dare to make a move against Yang Chun. This was a big trouble. You must know that if she couldn't kill Yang Chun and cut off her emotions, the realm of the brilliant Thousand Red Spirit method would always be a little short. The surging spirit power in her body gave Lady Fanghua an unreal feeling. How is this possible? Yang Chun actually let her absorb so much spirit power, but he didn't change. Was he still a human? Soon Lady Fanghua discovered that Yang Chun did not have any changes, but there was a very significant change. Yang Chen's spirit power cultivation base has now been very clearly degraded to the early Yuanying stage, and it is no longer the middle Yuanying stage not long ago. No matter who it was, after losing so much spirit power, it was inevitable that the realm would fall. even if it was as powerful as Yang Chun was no exception. However, Yang Chun was satisfied with this result. The quality of his spirit power directly improved by 2 small stages. Was there any dissatisfaction? If he knew that this which still had this hand, he would have let her use it earlier. It was beneficial to both sides. It was not a double cultivation, but it was better than double cultivation. It seemed that this wonderful cultivation process would have to come a few more times in the future. Unexpectedly, the demoness he had taken in by accident had such benefits. Although Yang Chen's spiritual power had fallen to the early Yuanying stage, Lady Fanghua no longer had the courage to make a move. If he couldn't kill Yang Chun in that kind of situation, then facing Yang Chun under normal conditions was even more impossible. After that, Lady Fanghua seemed to have accepted her fate. She no longer dared to have any murderous intent towards Yang Chun. She wholeheartedly immersed herself in serving her beloved. Along the way, Yang Chun thoroughly enjoyed the taste of gentleness. What made Madame Fanghua puzzled was that every time Yang Chun was intimate with her, he let her do her best to use the method of collecting yang to make up for yin and absorb her own spiritual power as much as possible. Although puzzled, Lady Fanghua did not dare to disobey Yang Chen's meaning. Soon she found that the spiritual power that could be absorbed from Yang Chun was getting less and less, and gradually there was only a trace left. Yang Chen's spiritual power cultivation finally stabilized at the early Yuanying stage, and there was not much change for the time being. On the way, Yang Chun was almost in his arms every day, and every night he indulged in debauchery. Lady Fanghua was indeed a charming witch. Some of the actions that Yang Chen's 4 wives couldn't do in any case were almost routine for Lady Fanghua, and Yang Chun was served with pleasure. This time, Yang Chun planned to send the Buddha to the west. He intended to send Lady Fanghua all the way back to the territory of the demon sect. In addition to communicating with Lady Fanghua, the other purpose was to see Yi Zhenxiong's son, the genius disciple Yi Yu, who he had scheduled, was born. According to the memory of the previous life, Yi Yu should be born now, and it was time to bring him back to the sect. Although Yi Yu's future achievements were extraordinary, but in the mortal world, because the foundation was not laid well at the beginning, there was a silence for thousands of years. Since Yang Chun wanted to be his master, he would not let this situation repeat. When he arrived at the territory of the demon sect, Yang Chun put away the shuttle and said goodbye to Lady Fanghua. Lady Fanghua also knew that she could not occupy Yang Chun for a long time. Not to mention anything else, if Yang Chen's 4 wives knew about it, she would not have a good fruit to eat. This Lady Fanghua knew. Yang Chun was very generous in fulfilling his promise to Lady Fanghua. A large number of spirit stones and elixirs were given to Lady Fanghua when they parted. His requirements were not high, as long as Lady Fanghua expanded her power in the sect. For an ambitious woman like Lady Fanghua, this was simply a timely help. Reluctantly saying goodbye to Yang Chun, Lady Fanghua stared at the direction where Yang Chun disappeared for a long time. She did not say a word, and her heart was filled with the pain of lovers parting. Sometimes Madame Fanghua really hated herself. How could she choose the cultivation method of the myriad colors spirit method, so that she would be so fascinated by a person? After 2 consecutive assassinations, Yang Chun was safe and sound, and Lady Fanghua's mentality also changed. However, if he wanted her to be dead set on him, at least Yang Chun still needed to be assassinated. At that time, no matter what the result was, the relationship between the two would not be as scheming against each other as it was this time. Lady Fanghua quickly adjusted her mentality and rushed back to Yin Yang Demon School. She, who was in the Mahayana stage, would get a higher position in the sect. In addition to the resources that Yang Chun supported her, it could be said that in the future, Yin Yang Demon School would definitely have the opportunity for Lady Fanghua to achieve great things. While Lady Fanghua left, Yang Chun had already gone straight to Wuji Demon School. After the last assassination, it was unknown how long Yi Zhenxiong would spend to return to the sect and take over the whole Wuji Demon School. As one of the top demon sects, Wuji Demon School was also a super big sect with many years of inheritance. It was very easy to find a direction. Yang Chun did not hide his identity as a Tao disciple and swaggered to the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School. As soon as Yang Chen's figure landed, he heard an extremely overbearing voice. Where did this Tao disciple come from? How dare you behave atrociously at the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School? Are you tired of living? The disciples of the Tao sect took pride in eliminating demons and defending the Tao. Conversely, the disciples of the demon sect also took pride in killing the disciples of the Tao sect. There is even a hint of joy in this voice. It seemed that the person was very happy that Yang Chun had sent himself to the door. I'm Yang Chun from Chunyang Palace. I have an appointment with your sect senior Yi Jinxiao. Please inform him. Yang Chun came to pick up his disciple. He did not want to fight with others, so he said loudly. He believed that everyone within a radius of several dozen miles could hear these words clearly. Why would sect leader Yi have an appointment with a Tao disciple? The overbearing voice snorted coldly and seemed very disdainful. Then he laughed arrogantly and said, I've been bored here for dozens of years. In this case, boy, since you're here, you don't have to leave. Leave your life here. I have an appointment in advance. If you don't inform me, I'll have to fight my way in. Yang Chun also sneered and walked toward the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School. Chapter 1180. As soon as Yang Chun left, the people at the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School were in an uproar. Although it seemed that Yang Chun had shown enough courtesy when signing up for the visit, and it was wrong for the people of Wuji Demon School to obstruct him, if Yang Chun were to break in like that, Wuji Demon School would lose all its face. Even those who had sympathized with Yang Chun at the beginning had changed their stance. How could it be so easy for a Taoist disciple to come to the mountain gate and want to see the sect master? Was the sect master someone you could see just because you wanted to? Without waiting for the order from the elders in charge of the mountain gate, a disciple immediately rushed toward Yang Chun. Taoists and demons could not coexist with each other. It was not an exaggeration to kill such an uninvited guest on the spot. Yang Chun also knew that things would not be so easy, so he did not think that it could end peacefully. At worst, Yi would lose his disciple. For Yang Chun, there was no loss. However, the opportunity was rare. No matter what, he had to break into the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School. If it was any other Taoist sect, Yang Chun would not be able to break into the mountain gate so arrogantly and presumptuously. Just the condemnation of those Taoist teachers could turn Yang Chun into a heinous villain. However, it was different in the demon school. As a Taoist disciple, Yang Chun broke into the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School alone, which greatly increased the reputation of Taoist disciples. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was a model example of eliminating demons and defending Taoism. After taking only one step forward, Yang Chun's body was surrounded by a black fog. The black fog was like a solid substance. It only lingered within a radius of 6 feet around Yang Chun's body and did not spread anymore. It was just a mass of darkness, and Yang Chun's figure could no longer be seen clearly. Not only could they not see it with their eyes, but they could also not detect it with their divine senses. This black fog was not as simple as it seemed. Everyone who saw this scene understood this. However, this could not be a reason to stop them. Everyone's flying sword almost immediately flew toward Yang Chun, who was wrapped in the black fog. It did not matter that they could not see Yang Chun, and it did not matter that their divine senses could not detect him. As long as they knew that he was in this black fog, it would be fine, right? This black fog was, of course, transformed by Yang Chun's 9-nether flying sword. In the past, he absorbed the demonic chi of the ultimate demonic vine. Because the concentration of the demonic chi was too high, Yang Chun could not use the 9-secret flying sword for a long time. Yang Chun even had to spend decades to strengthen his control of the 9-nether realm. His spiritual awareness cultivation base rose to the 9th grade of human immortal, which further improved Yang Chun's ability to withstand the demonic chi, which allowed him to deal with the demonic chi on the ultimate demonized vine. But to use it to control the 9-nether flying sword, he was still unable to do so for the time being. For more than 100 years, Yang Chun had spent most of his time on devil chi. Apart from absorbing the devil chi from the ultimate demonized vine plant into the Nine Serenities flying sword, he didn't have a good way to deal with the Nine Serenities flying sword due to his lack of spiritual power. Some time ago, Lady Fenghua's Thousand Colors spell gave Yang Chun an unexpected surprise. Once the intermediate method of harvesting Yang to replenish Yin was used, most of the impurities that Yang Chun couldn't refine were absorbed. This way, the purity of Yang Chen's spiritual power was raised to a level that even Yang Chun didn't dare to imagine. One of the direct consequences of having pure spiritual power was that Yang Chun was no longer afraid of the devil chi on the Nine Serenities flying sword. The reason why Li Cheng was powerful was that his spiritual power was pure. Although Yang Chun didn't dare to say that he had reached Li Cheng's level, he had no problem controlling the Nine Serenities flying sword. Now the devil chi on the Nine Serenities flying sword could no longer affect Yang Chun, and Yang Chun could use it however he wanted. Facing the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School, Yang Chun took out this magic weapon. Fortunately, Yang Chun was kind enough not to release the full power of the Nine Serenities flying sword. He only released less than 1/10 of it, which spread in a radius of 2 feet. It looked like he was going to break into the mountain gate, but there was no direct killing move. Perhaps Yang Chen's wives could see Yang Chen's kindness, and Li Cheng probably wouldn't have a problem. But obviously, these guys at the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School didn't have this awareness. In their eyes, Yang Chun was a guy who wanted to break in a mountain gate by force. It would not be an exaggeration to tear him into pieces. When Yang Chun took the third step, at least 10 flying swords flew into the black fog. Everyone had the same thought: kill Yang Chun on the spot. The black fog that they were expecting to shatter and Yang Chun to be cut into pieces did not happen. The flying swords flew into the black fog and disappeared like clay oxen in the sea. There was no more movement. Then a few guys started to vomit blood. The people who spewed blood were all people who had used their intrinsic flying swords. As soon as all the flying swords entered the black fog, they seemed to be cut off from the flying sword by something. Then, they seemed to be corroded by something. In the blink of an eye, dozens of flying swords were riddled with holes. When a natal flying sword was destroyed, it naturally caused a backlash. Vomiting blood was a typical symptom. At the same time that everyone was shocked, many people started to rejoice. Fortunately, they were only using ordinary flying swords and not natal magic treasures. Otherwise, they would have suffered the same fate as these unlucky fellows. However, it was too early for everyone to be happy. Corroding the flying sword was only the first step of the black fog. It was the most basic power, and the best part was yet to come. All the people who had launched the attack at the beginning seemed to have been suddenly bewitched. They all stood still on the spot with strange expressions on their faces, and they unconsciously showed a strange state. All the flying swords were controlled by divine consciousness. When divine consciousness came into contact with a Nine Serenities flying sword, it created a channel for the devil chi to invade. In just a few breaths, the devil chi began to affect all the people who had launched the attack. The power of the devil chi that Yang Chun couldn't bear was simply like a natural nemesis to these disciples of the demon sect. Many old devils of the Mahayana stage trembled with fear after many years of experience in the demon continent, and their faces changed at the smell of the devil chi. How could these guys, who lived like princes in their own sect, bear it? Even if Yang Chun had sealed more than 90% of the power of the Nine Serenities flying sword, these guys still couldn't bear it. The invasion of the devil chi immediately triggered the inner demons. The cultivation of the demon sect was born from the inner demons. This time, it was like a fuse was lit. Dozens of demon sect masters stayed in place and began to shake constantly. It was estimated that since the establishment of the Wuji Demon School sect until now, there had never been such a spectacular scene of dozens of masters suffering from chi deviation at the same time. In the face of such a scene, everyone who witnessed all this had an expression as if they had seen a ghost. What kind of powerful weapon was this? It could be so terrifying. With so many people being triggered at the same time, Yang Chen's black fog was simply the natural nemesis of the disciples of the demon sect. Chapter 1181. Some people kept vomiting blood, and some people kept trembling all over. That was not all. This wave of Qigong deviation even began to affect those around him who had not made a move. The concentration of devil Qi overflowing from the core of the demon continent was beyond imagination. Even if Yang Chen suppressed 90% of its power, the remaining 10% was enough to make these people who had never been exposed to devil Qi die on the spot. These demon sect cultivators, who were used to using their divine senses to probe the opponent's figure when they made a move, did the same thing while watching the fun. However, this time, no one thought that as long as the divine senses came into contact with the devil Qi, it would lead to disastrous consequences. For a while, the entire mountain gate of Wuji Demon School had become a world of monsters. Everyone had been triggered by the devil Qi in their hearts. Some of them spat out blood. Some of them brandished their weapons to slash and kill. Some of them cursed, and it was common for them to fight. The whole mountain gate had directly become a crazy world. Except for Yang Chen, there was no normal person. Yang Chen himself had already walked into the mountain gate and was walking slowly, as if he was enjoying the scenery. The sect naturally knew about the disturbance at the mountain gate immediately. As for what happened here, the senior members of the sect did not know the whole story at all. They only knew that their mountain gate had become a place where even the masters of the Yuanying stage did not dare to use their divine senses easily. Yang Chen did not go too deep inside. As one of the major sect of the demon sect, Wuji Demon School also had a rich heritage, which was comparable to the Taishamen of Taoism. Yang Chen had never thought that he could eradicate Wuji Demon School with his own strength. The purpose of coming here was for Yi Yu, his apprentice, not to fight with Wuji Demon School. If he really went too far and attracted the secret old guys of Wuji Demon School, it would not be worth it. Now that he had attracted enough attention, he would definitely be able to see Yi Zhenxiong. Moreover, these guys dared to make things difficult for him when they heard that he was looking for Yi Zhenxiong. It was estimated that they were also Yi Zhenxiong's enemies. Presumably, Yi Zhenxiong would be happy to help him eliminate some of his enemies. Who are you? How dare you behave atrociously at the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School? A calm voice came out, and the voice went straight to everyone's heart. Even those who had been triggered by the heart demons seemed to be suppressed by this voice and began to slowly recover their senses. Just this voice made Yang Chen understand that this was a top master. Yang Chen was not at all surprised that there was such a master in Wuji Demon School. I am Yang Chen of Chunyang Palace. I have an appointment with Elder Yi Zhenxiong, and I sincerely hope that Elder Yi can meet me. Yang Chen's words were very polite. To put it bluntly, Yang Chen was here to accept an apprentice, not to fight. After hearing this mysterious voice, the masters at the mountain gate who had triggered the heart demons were forcibly suppressed, and they began to slowly recover. It had to be said that the words of this master were more powerful than all the people at the mountain gate put together. It turns out that Master Yang has come to visit. Everyone in our school is honored by your presence. Please wait for a moment, distinguished guest. The voice replied and did not continue. But this time, no one dared to say anything to Yang Chen. Someone began to inform Yi Zhenxiong. Soon, Yang Chen saw Yi Zhenxiong. The people at the mountain gate had already been taken care of by the disciples of Wuji Demon School. No one dared to say a word. They were taken back to the mountain gate obediently, and no one knew where they went. Some of the disciples are not sensible. Please forgive them, Master Yang. The first sentence of Yi Zhenxiong's meeting was to apologize, and his expression was indescribably strange. He had heard of Yang Chen's name, but now he knew that Yang Chen was the person who had an appointment with him that year. The name of Yang Chen, even in the territory of the dark sect, was widely spread. Not to mention others, just the questioning inner heart pill and the century-old pill with the treasures that many people in the dark sect dreamed of, and these two kinds of pills were all made by Yang Chen. From a moment the mysterious voice mentioned Master Yang, many people had already reacted. Yang Chen of Chunyang Palace. Wasn't it the only 5th grade alchemy grandmaster? Yangchun? Only those guys with no brains would be stupid enough to offend such an alchemy grandmaster. It was estimated that the guy who answered at the beginning did not connect the alchemy grandmaster, Yangchun, with a young Taoist disciple in front of him. The guys who participated in the fight at the mountain gate were all pale when they left. Offending Master Yang, they did not know how much trouble there would be in the future. Many masters in the world were waiting for a few enemies of Master Yang to appear and use their heads to please Yangchun. At that time, they were really blinded by lard, so they made a move under the temptation of that guy. It was also their own fault. Why didn't they realize that Yangchun was the alchemy grandmaster in the first place? Of course, no one would have thought that Yangchun would come to the territory of the Dark Sect alone and ask to see Sect Master Yi at the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School. At this time, Yi Jinxiong had become the sect master of Wuji Demon School, and his cultivation had reached the Deshang stage. After apologizing, he directly used the most solemn etiquette of the sect to welcome Yangchun into Wuji Demon School. In Wuji Demon School, many people began to think that Yi Jinxiong actually knew the alchemy grandmaster, Yangchun. It seemed that in the future, their relationship with Yi Jinxiong had to be reconsidered. Yi Jinxiong had just grabbed the position of sect master from several candidates, and at least half of the people in the sect were not convinced. With Yangchun's arrival, it seemed that Yi Jinxiong had a huge bargaining chip. For Yi Jinxiong, Yangchun's appearance was simply timely rain. He could make use of this to rope in the majority of the disciples who were still wavering. If Yangchun's life-saving grace was counted, he now owed Yangchun 2 big favors. Of course, what surprised Yi Jinxiong even more was the birth of Yiyu. Back then, Yangchun had said that he wanted to accept one of his sons as a disciple, but Yi Jinxiong did not think much of it. Even though Yi Jinxiong had countless concubines, who could be sure that in the future, he would definitely give birth to a son who matched the characteristics that Yangchun had mentioned. However, Yiyu had the characteristics that Yangchun had mentioned in the past. It was also because of Yiyu's birth that Yi Jinxiong had a whole new level of respect for Yangchun, who had mentioned this a few hundred years ago. What kind of supernatural power could tell that he would have such a son a few hundred years later? Yi Jinxiong thought that Yangchun had forgotten about this matter, and he did not take it to heart. However, he did not expect that Yangchun would come to him right after he took over the sect and had not finished reorganizing it. What made Yi Jinxiong even more embarrassed was that the elder in charge of the mountain gate, who had always been at odds with him, had immediately made a move when he heard that Yangchun wanted to see Yi Jinxiong. This time, he had greatly offended Yangchun. Chapter 1182. Yi Jinxiong was also very shocked. At that time, he had made a great oath of the heart demon to meet Yangchun's requirements. Thinking about it now, he felt a little scared. If he let those people from the mountain gate hurt Yangchun, or if he let Yangchun leave, he would be in big trouble. The people of the demon gate knew the power of the great oath of the heart demon best. It was a cultivator who faced difficulties with the heart demon. If he was bound by the great oath of the heart demon, he would have no other way but to die when he passed the heavenly tribulation. With the oath, Yangchun's life-saving grace, and Yangchun's identity, Yangchun simply enjoyed the grandest reception in Wuji Demon School. Except for Yi Jinxiong, the sect master, several vice sect masters and core elders were all present, which gave him enough face. Everyone knew the significance of having a good relationship with Yangchun. Not to mention anything else, a century-old pill was enough to give these guys an extra guarantee for their lives in the future. Every disciple of the Demon Gate cherished their lives. Which one of them had a grudge against their own life? Other people did not know the entanglement between Yangchun and Yi Jinxiong, but the appearance of Yangchun had already made everyone a little more afraid of Yi Jinxiong. It was not that no one thought of secretly dealing with Yangchun, but the trick Yangchun played at the mountain gate of Wuji Demon School scared many people. A puff of black fog directly triggered everyone's heart demon. This kind of ultimate weapon was simply the natural nemesis of the Demon Gate. Before they were sure, no one dared to act rashly. In addition, there was also Yi Jinxiong. After all, Yi Jinxiong was also the sect master of Wuji Demon School. Even if his position was not stable, At least half of the people still recognized him as the sect master. If his distinguished guest, Yang Chun, had an accident in the territory of Wuji Demon School, it would be the shame of the entire Wuji Demon School. Who would dare to deal with Wuji Demon School in the future? Even the safety of the sect master's guest could not be guaranteed, let alone the others. Of course, what shocked Yi Jinxiong the most was his son, Yiyu, who had just been born more than 10 years ago. On his foot was the 7-star mole that Yang Chun had mentioned in the past. If it wasn't for Yang Chun's coincidence, the ability to predict the future was simply too terrifying. No matter how one looked at it, Yi Jinxiong had no reason to become enemies with Yang Chun. Even if the two of them were on opposing sides, it did not prevent them from having a personal relationship. No one could care about this. Even the Taishaman had a few elites who were on good terms with the elites from the evil cult, as long as it did not affect the sect. No one would pursue this kind of thing. With Yang Chen's current status in the Dao sect, no one would and would not dare to use this kind of thing to attack Yang Chen. Even if the person who was friends with Yang Chen was the sect master of Wuji Demon School, Yi Jinxiong, who could be said to be a peerless devil, it would not hinder him. The influence of strength and influence was so magical. If it was an insignificant disciple of the Dao sect, he would definitely be labeled as colluding with the evil cult, and then be completely destroyed mentally and physically. This was the difference. Yang Chun did not respond too much to Wuji Demon School's kindness. His purpose for coming was very simple. It was to take away his future disciple, Yiyu. Yi Jinxiong had no objection to this. He had promised this a long time ago, and he had even made a heart demon oath. There was no possibility of him going back on his word. Moreover, the standard of Yang Chen's disciple education was also there. Whether it was Mu Bo or Hana Mengyu, they were now well-known figures in the Dao sect. Yiyu would only have a better future under his tutelage. With Yiyu as a link, even if he could not reach a further cooperation with Yang Chen now, there would be a lot of opportunities in the future. On this point, Yi Jinxiong had absolute confidence. The evil cult was not a barren land. It was also rich in resources, and some of them were even exclusive specialties. Yang Chen would definitely use them. With this premise in mind, Yi Jinxiong did not hesitate to call Yiyu out. There was still a long way to go. Today, there was no need to be too eager to stick to Yang Chen. On this point, after the core elders knew the purpose of Yang Chen's visit, they all had the same idea. There was still a long way to go, and there was no hurry. Yiyu, who was called out by his father, was also surprised and happy. With Yi Jinxiong's identity, Yiyu should have been educated to lay the foundation from an early age. Then, he would practice the top mental cultivation method of Wuji Demon School and become a new generation of masters in the evil cult. But I don't know why, Yi Jinxiong only taught him the most basic knowledge, but never let him cultivate. This always made Yiyu feel a little unbalanced in his small heart. He felt that he was discriminated against by his father and was not happy in Wuji Demon School. It was not until today that Yiyu knew why Yi Jinxiong was like this. It turned out that his future had been predetermined, and he was destined to be a person's disciple. In particular, this person was the famous 5th-grade alchemist Yang Chun, Master Yang, which made him even more overjoyed. This kind of ecstasy even washed away the division between Dao and Demon in his heart, and diluted the hidden worry that he might have a conflict with his father in the future. Although Yang Chun came and went in a hurry, it did not prevent him from making another deal with Wuji Demon School. Yang Chun used more than 10 century-old elixirs to exchange for a batch of special medicinal ingredients of the evil cult. He even obtained a 6th-grade and a 7th-grade demonic fire. It could be said that he returned from a rewarding journey. On the side of Wuji Demon School, they obtained more than 10 century-old elixirs, which meant that at least 10 masters could save their lives at certain critical moments. The strength of Wuji Demon School would also become more and more powerful because of this. Among all these, Yi Jinxiong benefited the most. With the control of the century-old elixirs in his hands, he could easily rope in a group of neutral elders to join his camp. His position as the headmaster would become more and more stable. Regarding the position of the headmaster of Wuji Demon School, what happened in reality was slightly different from what Yang Chen remembered. Back then, Yi Jinxiong was forced to recuperate for more than 100 years, so he had already lost the opportunity to fight for the position of headmaster. He only became an elder. However, in this life, because of Yang Chen's help, he saved 100 years and became the headmaster. Yang Chen did not know how Wuji Demon School would develop in the future. After all, what happened to Wuji Demon School had nothing to do with Yang Chen. Yang Chen only cared about Yiyu. Now that Yiyu had become his disciple, Yang Chen would not worry about whether Wuji Demon School would rise or fall in the future. As for Yiyu, the younger generation would have their own fortune. Moreover, he was just a disciple. As long as he did not betray his master, Yang Chen would not do anything to him. Since he had finished his business in the evil cult's territory, Yang Chen did not delay and directly set foot on the road back. Yi was temporarily placed in the pure Bottle-Her Garden. Like Hannah Mengyu in the past, he was first influenced by the medicinal aura of the elixirs. When he returned to the sect, he would be taught. After flying at a high speed for a while, Yang Chen suddenly stopped strangely. Chapter 1183. Boom! Without any warning, the location where Yang Chen was located suddenly began to explode. The power of the violent explosion was almost all concentrated on Yang Chen's body, and the momentum was enough to destroy the heavens and the earth. The shuttle was put away by Yang Chen in an instant, and the shadow of the golden bell appeared on the surface of his body. 3 dragon shadows flew up and down around Yang Chen's body. Whether it was the debris brought by the explosion or the spiritual power attack of the explosion itself, it was blocked outside Yang Chen's body, and it did not hurt Yang Chen at all. You have some skills. Suddenly, a woman's voice came from a place where there was nothing around. It was just a sentence of praise, and then a large wave of attacks covered the sky and covered the earth. Yang Demon School. Yang Chen's 9th grade human immortal spiritual awareness almost instantly discovered the identity of the people around him. Even if their figures were hidden under the shield of the formation, they could not escape the scan of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. The huge gap in strength was by no means able to make up for the shielding formation of a mortal world. Although this formation made even a peak Deshang stage master and even a master of the 1st grade human immortal who had just ascended were helpless, this did not prevent Yang Chen from discovering it easily. Yang Demon School could be said to have sent out all the elites this time. Only Yang Chen's spiritual awareness could detect that there were 13 masters of the Deshang stage around him, and there were dozens of Yuanying stage masters, men and women. All of them came up to kill him without even saying a word. In an instant, Yang Chen realized he was making a move. With such momentum, it seemed that no one could organize it except for Lady Fanghua. The myriad Red Spirit Law was still missing the last chance to kill Yang Chen. After killing Yang Chen, she would enter the Great Perfection Realm. Otherwise, she could only be completely fascinated by Yang Chen and willingly become Yang Chen's vassal and lover. As for the Cultivation Realm, it could only be a level lower than the Great Perfection Realm. Lady Fanghua was very ambitious. She didn't have a chance before, but now that she had passed the tribulation, she would never be willing to become a vassal of Yang Chen. She would do everything possible to kill Yang Chen. This could be seen from the fact that she had attacked twice in a row after having sex with Yang Chen. In that situation, Lady Fanghua couldn't kill Yang Chen, so she could only ask for help. No matter what, he had to take a gamble. If he could not kill Yang Chen now, the gap between them would only grow wider in the future. Thus, the earlier he acted, the higher his chances of success would be. Lady Fanghua must have the same thought, which was why she chose this timing. As for how Lady Fanghua convinced these masters of the sect, there was no need to ask. The spirit stones and resources that Yang Chen gave her to develop her own force must have become the reward for these masters of Yang Demon School to act. Wasn't this lifting a rock and dropping it on his own feet? Yang Chen wanted to cry and laugh, but he also admired Lady Fanghua's perseverance. If the first time didn't work, then the second time didn't work, and the third time didn't work. No wonder Lady Fanghua was also doing well in the demon sect. It wasn't without reason. Yang Chen didn't think too much about the more reasons, and this was not the time for him to think too much. The golden bell shook violently, and a melodious bell sound came out from Yang Chen's body. It carried a huge and unbelievable pressure, and it spread to the surroundings. The attack against the spiritual awareness was almost unavoidable. There was no other way but to use his own cultivation base to resist it. The surrounding masters of Yin Yang Demon School were all shocked by this bell sound. More than a dozen Yuanying stage masters with lower cultivation bases fainted directly to the ground. Strangely, most of the masters of Yin Yang Demon School seemed to be only affected by the bell sound, and then they adapted and still launched the strongest attack against Yang Chun. Under the blessing of the formation, the attacks of the 13 masters of the Deshang stage fell solidly on the golden bell of Yang Chun. Buzz, there was another earth-shaking bell sound, but this time it was not Yang Chen's initiative, but the sound of the golden bell shaking those attacks. Even if the attacks had fallen one after another, Yang Chun still couldn't see anyone with his naked eyes, but his spiritual awareness could clearly find the position of the enemy. It had to be said that this formation was indeed unique. It was the most suitable for ambush attacks. The strength of the masters of Yin Yang Demon School was also vividly shown after the two bell sounds. According to Yang Chen's estimation, the golden bell's current attack against the spiritual awareness, even the ordinary masters of the middle Deshang stage could not bear it, and the dozens of people around him, except for the dozen with the lowest cultivation base, the rest were all safe and sound. After discovering this, Yang Chun just sneered, and the golden bell once again made an earth-shaking bell sound. Along with the sound of the bell, there was a powerful emperor's aura, which instantly spread to the surrounding dozens of feet. In the empty environment, a series of exclamations suddenly sounded. All the cultivators within dozens of feet, except for Yang Chun, were all beaten down a small realm. Those who came were all experts. After noticing this change, they all cried out in surprise. The difficulty of Yang Chun was probably above their expectations, but all the masters of Yin Yang Demon School did not retreat. What a joke to deal with a junior in the early Yuanying stage. If 13 masters of the Deshang stage, plus dozens of Yuanying stage masters, still had to escape, would Yin Yang Demon School still have the face to mix in the demon sects? Now, the only thing they had to pay attention to was to prevent Yang Chun from swallowing the 100-year pill in a critical moment. As long as they could do this, with so many masters, they could grind Yang Chun to death. After all, Yang Chun was just an alchemist master, and they had never heard of how fierce his fighting skills were. Among the 13 masters of the Deshang stage, Yang Chun did not find the figure of Lady Fanghua. Presumably, she was hiding in an unknown place to observe the results, but it was certainly not too far away. Otherwise, Yang Chun's trace would not be so easy to find. The guy who came to die, Yang Chun would not have the slightest mercy. After the bell attack, Xiao Tian opened his hand, and the beheading Immortal blade appeared in Yang Chen's hand. Its tail curled and wrapped around Yang Chen's wrist. The fierce and incomparable beheading Immortal blade finally appeared in front of ordinary cultivators for the first time after the tempering was completed. The blade light fiercely drew a bright curve, cutting off a flying sword that had just appeared and cutting a stone shield into two halves. The blade momentum did not stop and crossed another space. The blade light flashed, and in the originally empty place, suddenly there was a bloody light, and then two human bodies suddenly appeared out of thin air. In the midst of the blood spurting, a guy with a strong and incredible expression on his face appeared in Yang Chen's field of vision. Yang Chen's backhand was another knife. On the forehead of the guy, just a small figure appeared, and it was cut by this knife, making a shrill scream, and instantly disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1184. One of the characteristics of the Yin Yang Demon School, in addition to double cultivation, was that the spiritual awareness cultivation base was generally strong. This could be seen from Lady Fanghua. Lady Fanghua, who had just been promoted to the Deshang stage, was able to launch a late Deshang stage spiritual awareness attack against Yang Chun. This was entirely because of the characteristics of the Yin Yang Demon School's cultivation method. It was also because the Yin Yang Demon School attached great importance to the cultivation of spiritual awareness that they paid attention to all kinds of means to enhance the spiritual awareness. Therefore, Lady Fanghua knew about the Devil Heart Sutra. If Li Heng was simply pursuing the improvement of the spiritual awareness cultivation base, the Yin-Yang Demon School was a good choice. However, if he also wanted to cultivate the spiritual awareness cultivation method, there would be a conflict, and the Devil Heart Sutra was probably the only demon cultivation method that would not bring about conflict. The master of the Deshang stage of the Yin-Yang Demon School in front of him, under the situation of being cut by the immortal beheading blade, was still not scared, and was still trying to escape with his primordial spirit. Of course, Yang Chun had been suppressing the power of the immortal beheading blade, but it had to be said that his will had been tough to a certain extent. It was a pity that when he met Yang Chun, he did not give him any chance to escape at all, and ended it with a backhand knife. The reason why he did not want to exert the full power of the immortal beheading blade was that Yang Chun was also worried that once the immortal beheading blade unscrupulously exuded killing intent, it would be regarded as a target to eliminate demons and defend the Tao. It must be known that many people in the Tao sect were looking for various excuses to get benefits from Yang Chun. If they were given this excuse, not to mention Yang Chun, even Chunyang Palace would probably be implicated. Yang Chun made his move on this side, and he did not intend to let anyone go. The blade cut the nearest one, and his left hand had already grabbed a flying sword that was slashed over. As soon as he exerted his strength, the good flying sword was directly grasped by Yang Chen's hand into a twist shape. Not far away, a miserable shriek rang out. The fellow whose life magic treasure was destroyed had his spiritual sense severely injured, and he fell limp to the ground. In just 2 seconds, Yang Chen's body had been attacked by dozens of magic treasures again. The golden bell flickered incessantly, and the 3 dragon shadows flew up and down. It was unknown how many attacks they had blocked. Even though they had already lost 2 experts, the onlookers were not discouraged. Instead, they became even more spirited. The casualties of their companions were nothing. Those who came from the Devil sect did not have much awareness of being united against a common enemy. They believed that the fewer people who got the spoils of war, the better. The golden bell that appeared on Yang Chen's body was obviously the best of the best. It allowed Yang Chun to block the attacks of so many Deshang stage and Yuanying stage masters in the early Yuanying stage, and he could also use the bell to fight back. Having personally experienced the power of the bell, everyone naturally knew how powerful such a magic treasure, with both offensive and defensive capabilities, would be if it was in their hands. If he could refine it into a natal magic treasure, he would no longer have to worry about being able to dominate the world. The greed in everyone's eyes was even more intense than before. If it was said that it was because of the reward given by Lady Fanghua before, then now, even if there were no such benefits, they would do it themselves. The good things on Yang Chen's body were simply surprising. Not to mention all kinds of medicinal pills, just this golden bell, plus the beheading immortal blade that could easily cut off the first master's flying sword, was worth everyone's old life. One by one, they instantly took out their hidden skills and greeted Yang Chen's side. The eroding bone, evil spirit, peach blossom divine miasma, blood transformation demonic technique, almost wrapped Yang Chen. In the surrounding space, there was a burst of ecstasy that penetrated into everyone's ears, making people feel that their blood vessels were swelling and they couldn't control themselves. Needless to say, this was the most basic and powerful means of Yin-Yang Demon School. Under the influence of the ecstasy demonic sound, even if it was a Taoist teacher for many years, he would be provoked and his heart would rise. It was simply the best means of interference in battle. More than a dozen Yuanying stage masters hidden in the dark who presided over the formation also exerted their strength and urged the formation to the extreme. All the attacks could almost increase the power by a few times in order to completely seal Yang Chun. Yin-Yang Demon School could become one of the major sect of the demon sects, and it was by no means an undeserved reputation. With these means of attack, even if Yang Chun was strong, he had to take a defensive position first. Even if his current spiritual awareness cultivation base was high and his spiritual power was pure, after all, he was only in the early yuanying stage. Only a fool would do this to face so many people head-on. However, this did not mean that Yang Chun had no means to fight back. The bell kept buzzing, constantly attacking everyone's spiritual awareness. And Yang Chun himself was like a phantom, his figure constantly flashing. Even the few guys who presided over the formation could not always lock the position of Yang Chun. At this time, the best way was to break them one by one. Those with relatively lower cultivation bases became victims, especially those who had fainted after being attacked by the bell. In the fierce battle, no one could take care of them. The only thing they could do was not to hit them when they were down. It was already good that they didn't take the opportunity to stab them, and they still hoped to take care of them. Therefore, these poor guys were still lying in the original place and remained unconscious. Yang Chen's figure first appeared in the place where these people were, and wherever he went, heads fell to the ground. No one would pity these guys. They were all overconfident guys. They heard that there were a lot of benefits, and they wanted to please Lady Fanghua. They didn't look at their own weight and ran over. They deserved to die. When it was time to share the benefits, there were a few fewer people, and everyone could get more. Next, it was also the yuanying stage masters. These guys were not stunned by the bell, and they were quite commendable in terms of spiritual awareness. Unfortunately, they met Yang Chun. Although Yang Chun was hiding and looked embarrassed, his figure was extremely fast, and few people could keep up with him. Every time he flashed, he was like a ghost, and when he arrived in front of the opponent, he would cut down regardless of anything. No matter what the opponent used to resist, whether it was the flying sword or the body-protecting magic weapon, it was the result of a cut. Naturally, the body was also cut in half by Yang Chun, just as the formation slowly shrank, further compressing the space of Yang Chen's activities, including the original unconscious. At least nearly 30 yuanying stage masters were killed by Yang Chun. The rest, including the one who presided over the battle, there were only 11 Deshang stage masters, plus more than 30 yuanying stage masters. The master of the Deshang stage, who had his life source flying sword destroyed, was also killed by Yang Chun in the chaos. But everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Yang Chun had been compressed into a small space. No matter how he escaped, he always had to face a few enemies. Chapter 1185. At this point, the masters of Yin Yang Demon School were finally happy. Yang Chun was now unable to escape, and everyone seemed to be thinking about how to divide the spoils. Yang Chen's figure finally stopped moving at high speed. Such a small space was meaningless. There were enemies in front and behind, and he had to face the attacks of several people at any time. Just when the onlookers were in high spirits, an unforeseen event suddenly happened. A black mist suddenly burst out around Yang Chen's body. With a boom, the black mist directly filled the entire formation space. Because the formation space had been compressed to a very small range, it was just enough for so many people to have a little bit of dodging and moving without interfering with each other. Yang Chen's black mist burst out so suddenly that everyone didn't think about this trick at all, and all of them were swept into the black mist in an instant. The masters of Yin Yang Demon School had a very strong spiritual awareness cultivation base, which Yang Chun was already well aware of. Therefore, the power of a 9 nether flying sword was deliberately released by Yang Chun by 20%. 20% of the power. Even a master at the peak of the Mayana realm could not bear it. Many masters who had been training in the demon continent for hundreds of years did not dare to easily come into contact with this level of demonic chi, let alone these masters who had been enjoying a peaceful life in the territory of the demon sect. No matter how much the demon sect paid attention to the law of the jungle, no matter how fierce the competition was, it was still many times worse than the environment on the demon continent, where one carelessness could end up in pieces. As soon as the demonic chi came out, all the guys who were surrounded by the demonic chi were immediately affected. The guys of Yin Yang Demon School were originally from the demon sect, so naturally, they would also encounter a lot of demonic tribulations in the process of cultivation. Under normal circumstances, if two people dual cultivated, relying on a unique method, they could still resist together, but at this moment, there was no such opportunity. In the middle of the battle, if the heart demon suddenly broke out and they went crazy, No matter how strong the master was, they could not maintain the battle. A few smart people turned around and fled, but unfortunately, in order to restrict the space of Yang Chen's activities, the formation actually included everyone in the formation. Hong, the guy who was the first to escape, directly hit the edge of the formation and was immediately attacked by the formation. Suddenly suffering from chi deviation, his mind was in chaos, and even his spiritual power was in disorder. How could he resist the attack of such a powerful array? He was directly blown into a pile of minced meat by the array. Yang Chen did not hold back at all. The reason he released the 9 nether flying sword was to kill everyone who surrounded him in one fell swoop. How could he hold back? Yang Chen's speed was fast to begin with. With the 9 abyss flying sword enveloping him, he was able to swing his saber continuously without any hindrance. In just a few breaths' time, all the experts in the array had been turned into corpses. The second wood blood phantom vine flying sword has been loaded into the immortal beheading blade. The blood of the guy who was beheaded by Yang Chen directly became the tonic of the blood phantom vine flying sword and was absorbed cleanly. Because of this, although there were a lot of corpses at the scene, there was strangely not much blood. Such a strange scene made people's scalps go numb. Overestimating yourself. Yang Chen snorted very disdainfully and put away the 9 nether flying sword and the immortal beheading blade, and began to harvest the spoils leisurely. The guys who presided over the array, as long as they were not fools, would no longer have any fluke mentality. If they fled quickly, there would be a glimmer of life. Otherwise, they would die without a burial place. All the Chinkoan bags were gathered together by Yang Chen and collected. These people probably couldn't believe it until they died. They received a lot of rewards from Lady Fanghua, and they didn't even have the chance to enjoy it, and they turned into corpses. At this moment, the enemies had been completely destroyed, and even the enemies on the periphery had fled. Yang Chen had put away his weapons and collected the spoils. When his mind was the most relaxed, a fierce attack suddenly came. The siege array did not disperse. It had been maintained, but at this moment it suddenly exploded. The array that could besiege more than a dozen masters of the Deshang stage. The power of the explosion was simply like the sky falling and the earth cracking, and Yang Chen was swept in. Yang Chen didn't even have time to call out the golden bell, and the power of the explosion had already reached his body. Hidden in the explosion from the ground, the sword went straight to the lower body of Yang Chen. This was the real killing move. A series of attacks, choosing the most appropriate time, the most unexpected means, all the purposes were to kill Yang Chen. Being able to make such a painstaking effort, even exposing himself in the explosion range of the array, there was no one else but Lady Fanghua. However, the killing move that Lady Fanghua had carefully designed, when it met Yang Chen, it seemed that everything had been expected and did not achieve the purpose of making Yang Chen panic and even unable to resist. Yang Chen's big hand stretched down and had already grabbed the flying sword, and the other hand stretched forward, and the palm had already pinched a smooth and soft body. With a little effort, the charming body was picked up by Yang Chen and quickly pulled back into his arms. Subsequently, Yang Chen's body squatted slightly and curled up, protecting the person who was caught by him in front of his chest. The power of the explosion of the array reached the body at this time. After a series of soul-stirring sounds, Yang Chen's curled-up body slowly straightened up. The woman who was caught by Yang Chen saw the surrounding situation clearly at this time. On Yang Chen's body, the robe had been blown to pieces, leaving only a small part still hanging on his body, like a beggar's dress that had been worn for a long time, or even worse than a beggar's dress. However, Yang Chen's body was not injured at all. The power of the explosion, which was like a landslide, did not cause any substantial damage to Yang Chen. The woman who was caught by Yang Chen was Lady Fanghua. At this moment, her face was full of shock, but there was also a kind of joy and excitement, and, at the same time, there was a kind of regret and puzzlement. The contradictory expression on the beautiful woman's face was very moving. How is this possible? Lady Fanghua could not believe her eyes. With that kind of power, if it were her, even if she did not die, she would have lost half of her life. However, there was no horizontal force on Yang Chen's body. How could Lady Fanghua not be shocked? Yang Chen did not care how shocked Lady Fanghua was at the moment. He sat on a big stone left by the explosion and pulled with his big hand. Lady Fanghua's delicate body involuntarily lay on Yang Chen's lap. Then Yang Chen raised his palm and slapped Lady Fanghua's buttocks without any explanation. Pa 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 pa. A series of spanking sounds sounded. Lady Fanghua's face was flushed, and her mouth also made a burst of charming moans. This is the third time. Yang Chen's voice sounded along with the sound of the big hand falling. Fanghua, I don't want it to happen again. Chapter 1186. Lady Fanghua said that after the cultivation of the myriad colors spirit method, if you can't kill your lover 3 times, it will also be perfect. Although it is not comparable to the realm of great perfection, it is also a step further than the current realm. This was the 3rd time, and it was the last time Yang Chen promised. If Lady Fanghua still had the intention to kill, Yang Chen would not leave this scourge. Yang Chen did not think about how to manage the demon sections. This was just the right time to meet Lady Fanghua, but he did not intend to take this as an important thing. This slave will never dare again. Although Lady Fanghua was still leaning on Yang Chen's legs and could not see Yang Chen's face, she could also guess Yang Chen's current expression. She said this very softly, then her body was light and she was pulled up by Yang Chen. After being spanked by Yang Chen several times, Lady Fanghua's face was flushed and her eyes seemed to be dripping water. There was no regret on her face that she could not kill Yang Chen, only a strong joy. It must be said that just a few times, the speed of the face change really made the best actress in the world feel ashamed. You really don't dare? Yang Chen asked again with a fierce face. Lady Fanghua's head was in a mess, and before she could even answer, her body began to change. Countless huge spiritual powers from all directions seemed to have encountered a strong suction, and they quickly gathered towards Lady Fanghua. Lady Fanghua's body, like a whale sucking water, madly absorbed these spiritual powers, and her cultivation base rose sharply. In just a short time, the spiritual power absorbed had pushed Lady Fanghua to the middle Deshang stage. After absorbing the mixed spiritual power of Yang Chen before, Lady Fanghua was already at the peak of the early Deshang stage, but now, in a very short time, she broke through again. Not only the spiritual power changed, but even the spiritual awareness cultivation base had improved. In a short time, Lady Fanghua's sea of consciousness seemed to have condensed a bit, and her spiritual awareness cultivation base rushed to the peak Deshang stage. All these changes happened when Lady Fanghua sat on Yang Chen's lap. Lady Fanghua did not avoid Yang Chen, so Yang Chen could naturally detect it clearly. At this point, how could Yang Chen not understand that Lady Fanghua had failed to kill him 3 times, and her cultivation of myriad color spirit method had entered the realm of perfection? Such a change was more useful than 100 words of assurance from Lady Fanghua. This fully showed that Lady Fanghua did not lie before. At least after experiencing this assassination attempt, she must have made a heart oath to be loyal to Yang Chen, so she would no longer have any killing intent. For the time being, Yang Chen recognized the loyalty of Lady Fanghua. However, the means of the demon's sex, Yang Chen was sometimes not particularly clear, so he was still a little wary in his heart. How could it be so fast? Lady Fanghua was puzzled after everything was done. Why is it so fast? Yang Chen asked casually. Isn't your demon's sex cultivation method about speed? It's not the speed of our Tao sex old ox pulling cart. Is there anything abnormal? If it's just the realm of perfection, this slave's cultivation base should not have broken through the middle Deshang stage. Lady Fanghua certainly would not hide it from Yang Chen and quickly replied. Then she immediately reacted and said with surprise, "This slave knows. This is because of the spiritual power that this master gave to this slave. The spiritual power that Lady Fanghua absorbed last time. Although it was the mixed spiritual power that Yang Chen did not want, after all, it was the original spiritual power that had been condensed by Yang Chen and it was the 10 great yin and yang 5-element spirit power. The quality was far higher than that of Lady Fenghua's cultivation. Therefore, even if it was only a part of Yang Chen's spiritual power, it still pushed Lady Fenghua to the peak of the early Deshang stage. It was because of this powerful help that Lady Fenghua's cultivation base could quickly break through the early Deshang stage in such a short time and enter the middle Deshang stage. This was an unexpected surprise. Lady Fenghua always thought that the realm of perfection would at most let her reach the peak of the early Deshang stage. It must be known that this was already a jaw-dropping speed. She had just been promoted to the Deshang stage, and it had only been a few days, and she had broken through a small realm. Even if it was placed on the demon sect disciples, this kind of cultivation growth seemed to be a bit fast. Lady Fenghua looked at Yang Chen's ragged clothes and immediately took out a set of men's robes from her chinquin bag and waited on Yang Chen to change. All the movements she made were full of tenderness and sweetness, as if a little woman was changing clothes for her husband. Yang Chen enjoyed the service of Lady Fenghua with a clear conscience. Until she served everything, Yang Chen checked the surroundings. No other figures were found. Yang Chen asked, "So many people came out. Only you went back. Is there any trouble?" "There is no trouble," Lady Fenghua replied quickly. "These people are the guys who used to deal with me in the sect. I use me as bait and spent a lot of money to invite them to do it. If it succeeds, everything will be fine. If it fails, it is because they are not skilled enough." Lady Fenghua cultivated the glamorous spiritual method. Presumably the sect must know. She was so determined to kill Yang Chen, and these people also knew the reason. Anyway, they could make a lot of money from Lady Fenghua. If they succeeded, they could also add a master of perfection to the yin-yang demon school. This kind of business the sect was naturally willing to do. It was just that no one would have thought that Yang Chen would be so powerful. So many people couldn't do anything to Yang Chen, and they were all killed by Yang Chen. If the core executives of the yin-yang demon school knew the result, they didn't know how distressed they would be. 13 masters of the Deshang stage, plus dozens of Yuanying stage. In any sect, it was a force that could not be ignored. Such a powerful force was enough to destroy the Chunyang Palace countless times before Yang Chen joined, but they were all destroyed in the hands of Yang Chen in this battle. Lady Fenghua knew that Yang Chen was powerful, but she didn't know Yang Chen's Real trump card. Yang Chen was still so powerful after she absorbed so much spiritual power, which made Lady Fenghua a little afraid. However, Lady Fenghua was also a number one figure. When she returned to the sect, she immediately took out all the resources given by Yang Chen to kill Yang Chen. For Lady Fenghua, after killing Yang Chen, she would be in the great perfection realm. Those worldly possessions were not worth mentioning, and there would be time to slowly accumulate them in the future. If they couldn't kill Yang Chen, then these people would be unlucky. Anyway, these guys were guys that didn't deal with Lady Fenghua. Their death would also be of great benefit to Lady Fenghua. At least Lady Fenghua reached the great perfection realm. Although there was a slight deficiency, she was also a little master of the sect. Coupled with the loss of so many masters, Lady Fenghua joining the core of the sect was also expected. Chapter 1187. Whether it succeeds or fails, Lady Fenghua will benefit from it. It can't be denied that this witch's mind is also very calculative. The current situation is advantageous to Yang Chen, so Yang Chen certainly won't mind. Now that Lady Fenghua has completely surrendered, Yang Chen, of course, still focused on comforting her. These things, you could take them back and use them. Yang Chen took out all the chinquin bags of dozens of experts collected and placed them in front of Lady Fenghua. "I only want medicinal herbs. The rest is yours." Lady Fenghua looked at Yang Chen, who was not stingy to take out all the spoils of war, and there were ripples in her beautiful eyes. Her heart was already tied to Yang Chen. How could she not understand that this was her lover's heart? She was so happy that she almost shouted out loud. Fortunately, her divine awareness cultivation was enough, so she didn't lose her composure on the spot. Even so, Lady Fenghua still plunged into Yang Chen's arms, enjoying the warmth of Yang Chen's embrace. smelling the strong masculine scent of Yang Chun, and couldn't help herself. She just felt that her heart was floating in the air. There was no woman in this world who was happier than herself. This myriad colors spiritual method of the demon sex was indeed strange. It could actually affect the matter of love. It couldn't be said that it was quite evil. Yang Chen really enjoyed the unreserved love of Lady Fanghua, which made him even feel a little embarrassed. On the battlefield, there were corpses everywhere. Such a place was, of course, a bit of a spoiler. Yang Chun directly left with Lady Fanghua on the shuttle. Fanghua, your cultivation is growing too fast. Will there be any impact? Yang Chen asked worriedly. The little woman who had been curled up in his arms and didn't want to leave, the elder of Yin Yang Demon School, the world-famous Lady Fanghua, was now like a tamed kitten, comfortably enjoying Yang Chen's caress and didn't want to leave Yang Chen's embrace for even a moment. After I go back, I'll go into seclusion for a period of time. It won't affect me much. Lady Fanghua was immersed in her lover's tryst. How could she care about her own cultivation? The cultivation of the Devil Gate had its own uniqueness. Yang Chun could not say that his cultivation method would be suitable for everyone. In this regard, he could not help Lady Fanghua. Even though they were dual cultivators, the two of them seemed unable to work together. The Tao and the demonic Tao were irreconcilable, not just in terms of words and standpoint, but also in terms of cultivation. However, there was one thing that was good for both sides. Yang Chun had just discovered this. For his own woman, Yang Chun would not be stingy at all. Fanghua, when you have sex with me in the future, use your move to collect Yang to replenishing. Absorb as much as you can. It's good for both of us. Yang Chun bowed his head and instructed the woman in his arms with an intoxicated face. She could absorb his mixed spiritual power and bring Yang Chun supreme physical enjoyment. It was killing two birds with one stone. Of course, it would continue in the future. Don't. This slave will not harm this lord. Madame Fanghua was uncharacteristically shaking her head directly into a rattle drum. She did not agree. In the past, she couldn't wait to tear Yang Chen's body into pieces, but now she didn't want Yang Chen to lose a hair. Be obedient. Yang Chen's arms tightened as if warning the witch, believe me, it's good for both of us. Lady Fanghua was also a master and smart person. She carefully pondered over Yang Chen's words. From Yang Chen's performance after she absorbed the spiritual power, she seemed to understand something. Finally, she no longer insisted and nodded with joy. What a joke! Such a good thing. Good for you. Good for everyone. Who wouldn't be happy? Speaking of which, what is the difference between your great perfection realm and the perfect realm? Yang Chen was also very interested in Lady Fanghua's myriad red spiritual method. Of course, he had to find ways to help his own woman. He couldn't let her keep trudging in this imperfect cultivation direction. I don't know. This spiritual method is rarely practiced by people. Lady Fanghua couldn't wait to squeeze into Yang Chen's arms and become one with him. She curled up into a ball with her arms and legs coiled on Yang Chen's body. She didn't want to be separated from him for a moment. She answered in an intoxicated state. It's probably nothing more than the way to cut off feelings and character. After Yang Chen carefully pondered for a while, he said slowly, kill me, and you will naturally have no worries. Cut off feelings and character, and nothing can bother you anymore. No matter how strong the inner demon is, it won't have much impact on you. As he said, he patted Lady Fanghua's, but in displeasure. Why don't you know? Are you afraid that I will be angry after knowing? After her thoughts were exposed by Yang Chen, Lady Fanghua didn't resist. She just followed Yang Chen's punishment and rubbed on Yang Chen's body twice, tacitly agreeing with Yang Chen's words. I understand now. Yang Chen suddenly became spirited and his tone was much more excited. Fanghua, you don't have to feel regret. You don't need such a great perfection. Master, why is that? When Yang Chen said this, Lady Fanghua was also curious. She raised her head and asked in confusion. This concerned her own cultivation. No matter how much Lady Fanghua was affected by the spiritual method and her heart was for Yang Chen, she couldn't help but be interested. After killing your lover, You will no longer be tied down by worldly affairs. However, it will only make you more resolute towards everything. There will be no more worries. Yang Chun said quickly, "It seems to be resolute and courageous, but there is no hope in my heart. I can only go on a dark road. This kind of cultivation, sometimes it is powerful, but in the moment of despair, because there is no possibility of turning back, I can only die." When these words came out, Lady Fanghua couldn't help but fall in a deep thought. She was the person with the most right to speak about the 1,000 glamorous spiritual method. Yang Chen's words could coincide with her cultivation. If your lover is alive, the situation is different. Yang Chen paused for a while and waited for Lady Fanghua to digest what he said before continuing. At any time, there is hope in the heart to reunite. As long as there is this hope, it is the greatest courage. It can allow you to overcome all the troubles in front of you. Both are extremely emotional. One is just reminiscing and longing while the other wants to overcome all obstacles to reunite. You decide for yourself which is better. Yang Chen's words actually referred to his previous life's experience. In his previous life, his master committed suicide. Although Yang Chen always had the thought of revenge, every time he thought about the scene of his master dying, his heart would be in pain. His master died for him. This was similar to the situation of the 1,000 glamorous spiritual method killing his lover. This life was completely different, at least in Yang Chen's heart, to let his master live a better life, to let his master stay by his side. The energy that he exploded out wasn't as simple as the memories of his previous life. The hope of life and the despair of death were two completely different states of mind. Chapter 1188. Lady Fanghua had been listening to Yang Chen's words, and she would frown from time to time. Yang Chen's words were completely different from what she had seen and heard since she started cultivating the 1,000-color spiritual technique. To put it bluntly, Yang Chen had simply subverted Lady Fanghua's concept of the 1,000-color spiritual technique. What was the point of saying that the great perfection realm was inferior to the small perfection realm? But what Yang Chen said did make sense sometimes. At least Lady Fanghua felt that if she was trapped between life and death, in order to meet Yang Chen again, the burst of energy would definitely be much stronger than Yang Chen living in her heart. But this 1,000-color spiritual technique was passed down by the seniors in the sect. Could it be that the seniors in her sect were wrong? This was simply impossible. Yang Chen didn't really understand the 1,000-color spiritual technique at all, so how could he understand the profoundness in it? If replaced by any other person, saying this to Madame Fanghua, it was estimated that Madame Fanghua would directly kill the other party. The problem was that Lady Fanghua loved Yang Chen so much that she didn't want to go against Yang Chen at all. She might have to think about Yang Chen's words carefully. Yang Chen also understood that it was impossible to change Lady Fanghua's hundreds of thousands of years of relationship in a day. This wasn't a cultivation technique that could make her fall in love with someone instantly. Some things were better to let nature take its course and let her comprehend it herself. After all, Yang Chen didn't really understand the mental cultivation technique of the demon sect, so he couldn't give more pointers to Lady Fanghua. Although Lady Fanghua was still skeptical, a seed of thinking was already planted in her heart. For a long time to come, she would carefully consider the logic in this. The 1,000-color spirit technique that the seniors cultivated had all reached the great perfection realm. No one had just cultivated it to the small perfection realm. The lovers that the seniors found weren't all as strong as Yang Chen. In Yang Chen's flying shuttle, Lady Fanghua served Yang Chen and enjoyed the bliss of love until Yang Chen once again sent Lady Fanghua to the vicinity of Yin Yang Demon School. Lady Fanghua once again watched Yang Chen's figure leave with an infatuated look. Tears of reluctance flowed from her eyes. This separation in front of her was completely different from the previous one. Madame Fanghua only felt that her most important things had been far away from herself, and in her heart there was a large, empty space. This feeling of longing made Lady Fanghua reconsider Yang Chen's words. This time, Madame Fanghua suddenly understood a little bit. With tears in her eyes, there was a little more light in a flash. Finally, after watching the figure disappear completely, Lady Fanghua rushed back to the sect at the fastest speed. Then, regardless of anything else, she began to retreat without saying a word. In the pure bottle her garden, Yu witnessed the battle in which Yang Chun killed dozens of masters. This was deliberately done by Yang Chun. He just wanted Yu to feel the ruthlessness of the world of cultivators. Of course, Yang Chun actually did this a bit superfluous. Yi Zhenxiang's son grew up in Wuji Demon School. How could he not understand this? But it was not without any effect. At least Yu had thoroughly understood that Yang Chun was definitely the most powerful master he had ever seen. Even if he had not cultivated, Yu was also very knowledgeable. The masters of Yin Yang Demon School killed by Yang Chun were all names that Yu could call out. So many masters of the Deshang stage could not even last a few rounds under Yang Chun. This master was definitely a real master. After this battle, Yu no longer had any resistance to becoming a disciple of Yang Chun. He obediently followed Yang Chun's instructions and accepted the influence of medicine in the herb garden. Once he returned to the sect, he would enter the Ishio villa to cultivate from the beginning. After the matter of the demon sect was over, Yang Chun did not return directly to the sect. Instead, he rushed to the Blue Cloud sect first. The ultimate demonized vine was first given to Sun Qingxue so that she could start to integrate and absorb it. At first, Yang Chun did not intend to give the ultimate demonized vine to Sun Qingxue. His original plan was to use the ultimate demonized vine to strengthen the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword. Presumably, after the two were combined, the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword would be more powerful. However, later, after Yang Chun experienced a worldly experience, he had new insights. The Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword did not need such strengthening. As long as the original characteristics of the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword were maintained, it would naturally strengthen and upgrade. This was actually very easy. As long as blood was constantly used to nourish the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword, this second flying sword would become stronger and stronger, even without other methods. Although strengthening it with the ultimate demonized vine would make the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword stronger and sharper, these two characteristics were not needed for the second flying sword, one of the great Yin Yang 5 elements flying sword. The sharpness was enough as long as the Immortal Beheading Blade was used. After all, the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword was still one of the sword souls in the sword sheath. The purer the spiritual power cultivation, the better. In fact, this principle also has the same effect on the flying sword magic weapon. The more comprehensive you want to pursue, the things you get will only be one thing, and the advantages will not be prominent. This was the conclusion Yang Chun got from Li Cheng's performance after his experience in the world of mortals. Although Li Cheng only pointed out that the cultivation should be pure, but such a simple analogy, Yang Chun didn't figure it out until decades after leaving the demon continent. It was really a little shameful to think about it. Since it was not used to strengthen the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword, then this ultimate demonized vine was the best medium for Sun Qingshue's cultivation. Abai has already merged with the seed of the demonized vine, and she does not need this ultimate demonized vine that is easy to cause imbalance to strengthen. In the end, Bai was just a tool spirit, and her body was still a blue jade vine. She could integrate with the Blood Phantom Vine because the Blood Phantom Vine was weaker than her body, and the seed of the demonized vine was the same. But if it was this ultimate demonized vine, the result would be hard to say. At this point, Yang Chun decisively chose to give up. It has been decades since Yang Chun let Sun Qingxue plant the seed of the demonized blue jade Blood Phantom Vine in her body. It is estimated that Sun Qingxue has fully mastered the control method. At this time, the ultimate demonized vine was sent over, and the time was just right. Sure enough, when Yang Chun arrived at the Blue Cloud sect, Sun Qingxue had already completed the demonized blue jade Blood Phantom Vine's ascetic cultivation. In just a few decades, it seems that Sun Qingxue's cultivation base has improved again. Not only has her cultivation base reached the peak of the middle Yuanying stage, but the purity of her spiritual power has also greatly improved. This was the benefit of this kind of demonized vine ascetic cultivation. Whether it was Master Hua Wanting or disciple Sun Qingxue, they all showed extraordinary strength, so that the Blue Cloud sect even considered whether the disciples of the wood attribute could refer to this method when they cultivated in the future. Chapter 1189. The arrival of Yang Chun made Sun Qingxue very happy. However, after seeing Yang Chun, Sun Qingxue still gave Yang Chun a very aggrieved, pouting expression. The news that the three sect forcibly sent 7 beautiful women to Chunyang Palace was known to the whole world, and Sun Qingxue naturally knew it. However, what made her aggrieved was that her own sect did not protest about it. She didn't know what kind of deal the senior management had reached, but the sect must have gotten some benefits. But in the eyes of Sun Qingxue, she was extremely aggrieved. Obviously, he was her husband. Speaking of which, among the 4 wives of Yang Chun, the first one he knew was Sun Qingxue, and even Shi Shanshan was ranked second. Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, and Shi Shanshan could be forgiven. One was Yang Chen's master, and the other was his senior sister, so they were close to each other. Shi Shanshan took good care of her, and Sun Qingxue did not resist. But why did those women have to marry her? After all, she had been with her husband for many times, and their emotional foundation was very solid, so they got married. Her husband didn't even know those women. Why did they put them to his side? Although she felt aggrieved, Sun Qingxue was, after all, an official's family. After experiencing the world of mortals, she saw the problem more thoroughly. She also understood that these things were not something that Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace could refuse without scruples. Although she understood it, it happened to her, so Sun Qingxue couldn't help feeling aggrieved. In the same reproachful eyes of Elder Hua, Yang Chun could only hold Sun Qingxue and comfort her softly for a long time, so that the little girl would not feel so aggrieved. In order to change the topic, Yang Chun quickly said that he had found another disciple, and then brought Yiyu out to greet his master's wife. Upon hearing Yiyu's background, Sun Qingxue immediately understood that this fellow in front of her was the one Yang Chun and Gong Sunling had promised to save Yi Jinxiong after they went to the Demon Gate together. However, she was also very curious. How did Yang Chun know that Yi Jinxiong would have a son with a 7-star mole on his foot, and that he would accept him as a disciple in advance? Of course, Yang Chun couldn't explain. Fortunately, Sun Qingxue knew that some things about Yang Chun were mysterious, so she didn't want to get to the bottom of it. After not seeing each other for decades, the two of them naturally had to be intimate. Yang Chun wanted to understand Sun Qingxue's cultivation, so the two of them naturally began to dual cultivate. It had to be said that Sun Qingxue's hard work in cultivation really paid off. Yang Chun was surprised to find that the purity of Sun Qingxue's spiritual power was at least 3 points purer than when they were separated. Although it was not as good as Yang Chen's now, it was also rare. Even Sun Qingxue's master, Elder Hua, may not have such a level. Next was the shock of Sun Qingxue. When the two of them were dual cultivating the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra, Yang Chun, who was already a 9th grade human immortal, naturally drove Sun Qingxue's spiritual awareness to further skyrocket. Directly rushing to the peak of the Dashang stage was not the end. In Sun Qingxue's great surprise, her spiritual awareness broke through the Dashang stage and entered a realm that she didn't dare to think about. From the 1st grade human immortal, it didn't stop until the 2nd grade human immortal. This was already beyond the limits of the mortal world's spiritual awareness cultivation. The whole world in the eyes of Sun Qingxue seemed to have changed fundamentally. The feeling of transcending everything made Sun Qingxue unable to believe it. Was she still in a dream? How could such a crazy thing happen? After Sun Qingxue was surprised by her own spiritual awareness cultivation, there was even more fear of Yang Chen's realm. What kind of spiritual awareness cultivation did her husband have to raise her to this realm? Of course, Yang Chen would not hide this from his wife. Hearing that Yang Chun had already completed the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art, and that his spiritual awareness cultivation had reached the 9th grade human immortal, even with Sun Qingxue's understanding of her husband, she still stayed in Yang Chen's arms for a long time before she recovered. How was this possible? Sun Qingxue could only say such a sentence that even she didn't have any strength to doubt it. Her husband was really a monster. She thought that Sun Qingxue was already a rare genius of the Blue Cloud sect. Compared with Yang Chun, she was simply trash. What's impossible? Yang Chun smiled and hugged his little wife and asked with a smile, "This is the truth. Do you dare to question your husband? Husband, what is your 5 elements spiritual root like?" Of course, Sun Qingxue was not questioning Yang Chun. She was just a little too shocked and couldn't accept it completely. Now she was also shocked by Yang Chen's monstrous degree and began to be interested in Yang Chen's spiritual root cultivation. Fire attribute innate spiritual root is more than 70. Yang Chun replied casually. This should not be a secret, and many people knew about it. What about acquired spiritual root? Sun Qingxue did not intend to give up and continued to ask. This time, Yang Chun did not answer. Instead, he took out a 5-colored stone from his cosmos sack and held it in his hand. He activated his spiritual power and let Sun Qingxue see it for herself. The 5-colored stone's 5-colored radiance flashed at this moment. Then, under Sun Qingxue's stunned expression, all 5 types of radiance reached the brightest. Full spiritual root of all 5 elements? Sun Qingxue could no longer suppress her surprise and exclaimed, "Sorry for making a fool of myself. It can't be compared to your innate spiritual root." Yang Chun had a light look on his face, and the expression on his face seemed to be saying something that was not worth mentioning. "I'm jealous." Sun Qingxue punched Yang Chun angrily and said. Then she quickly laughed, jealous of her husband. Thinking about it was really a funny thing. Believe me, a specialization is definitely not worse than your husband. Yang Chun hugged Sun Qingxue and comforted her softly. Then he took out a cosmos sack and handed it to Sun Qingxue. This is... Sun Qingxue took the cosmos sack, and when she explored it with her spiritual awareness, she immediately found the complete ultimate demonized vine inside, and she was pleasantly surprised. The demonic chi has been cleaned up. You can integrate and absorb it later, Yang Chun reminded. As long as you can fully integrate it, your strength will reach the 9th grade of human immortal. However, don't forget balance. After all, the ultimate demonized vine belonged to the 2nd wood. Sun Qingxue cultivated the 1st wood true secret art and the 2nd wood true secret art at the same time. Of course, it couldn't be too unbalanced. However, yin and yang were mutually reinforcing and restraining. As long as she paid attention to it on a daily basis, she could also synchronously improve the cultivation of the 1st wood true secret art. The future direction is up to you. After handing over the ultimate demonized vine, Yang Chun seemed to have given up the control of Sun Qingxue's cultivation direction. Believe me, little Xue, no matter what direction you choose, you will be the strongest master in the future. Yes, husband. For Yang Chen's encouragement, Sun Qingxue gladly accepted. She was also a very assertive person. Now, without the framework given by Yang Chun, she seemed to be more comfortable and confident. Chapter 1190. Yang Chun sent Yu back to Chunyang Palace. His master and senior sister were not there, so Yang Chun directly turned to the Green Jade Immortal Island and came to see Shanshan. Sun Qingxue's life in the Blue Cloud sect was very good. She had a strong master who doted on her, and her husband was the only 5th grade alchemist master in the mortal world. It could almost be said that she had everything she wanted. Relatively speaking, Shanshan's life in the sect was not so comfortable. Of course, comfortable or not was also relative. At least in the eyes of others, Sun Qingxue's torture of being entangled by the blood demon vine was not comfortable. Shanshan was still a genius disciple on the Green Jade Immortal Island, and she still had everything she should have. The problem was that some people in the sect treated Shanshan with more hostility. Master Song Huan was originally not a strong figure in the sect. It was already very good that she could barely speak for her apprentice. But to support her apprentice in the sect like Elder Hua, she couldn't do it with her ability. When she just came back from the Demon Continent last time, Shanshan seriously injured her senior sister Li Jiqi martial uncle Lu Ziwei, and elder Bei Shuangyu in front of a group of elders, and she fought with elder Min Huafeng. It was really outstanding. However, this also caused a large number of people to lose face, especially a large number of people who were familiar with elder Lu Zijin. Even the elder of technique imparting, Bei Shuangyu, was slightly displeased. In front of so many people, they made elder Lu and elder Bei look so ugly. How could they just let it go? When a sect was big, it was inevitable that there would be a variety of interest groups and factions. Even the Dao sect leaders, the Taishamen, were like this. As one of the 5 major sects, how could the Green Jade Immortal Island be immune? There were also many factions within the sect. After Shi Shanshan returned to the sect, these people began to make things difficult for Shi Shanshan, intentionally or unintentionally. Although there was no deliberate embezzlement in the allocation of some resources, they would always think of ways to delay the allocation of time or procedures in order to achieve their goal of disrupting Shi Shanshan. It was impossible for Shi Shanshan to complain to the higher-ups about such a small matter. That would only cause the higher-ups to have a different impression of her. If he couldn't even solve such a small matter, how could he achieve anything big? If it was just a matter of resources, Shi Shanshan wouldn't care. What kind of things had she not seen when she was with her husband? In addition, they had just returned from the Demon Continent. Thousands of Deshang stage masters were divided equally among a few people. What could they not have? The things in the sect were really not in the eyes of Shi Shanshan. But these people saw that they couldn't disturb Shi Shanshan in this way, so they put their ideas in other places. Aren't you, Shi Shanshan, powerful? Then go and do the sect's tasks. Those dangerous, powerful enemies and 9 out of 10 missions were all piled up to Shi Shanshan. For this kind of discord, how could Shi Shanshan, who had experienced the world of mortals, not understand it? However, she returned to the sect to make up for the fact that she had not contributed to the sect in these years of cultivation, and the second was to improve her own cultivation base as much as possible. When they separated, Yang Chun said that when Shi Shanshan's cultivation base was further improved, he would take her to a place to collect something. With such a thing, Shi Shanshan's cultivation would no longer need Yang Chen's guidance. In this regard, Shi Shanshan remembered it in her heart and thought about improving her strength all the time. After experiencing the experience of the Demon Continent, ordinary sex tasks were indeed difficult to achieve the purpose of making Shi Shanshan's cultivation-based progress in a short period of time. She needed some dangerous tasks and powerful enemies to sharpen herself. The tasks carefully selected by these people were just in line with Shi Shanshan's appetite, and it also saved Shi Shanshan the time to go to the huge sex task pile to find it. Therefore, Shi Shanshan knew that these people had bad intentions, but she still took advantage of the situation and took these tasks and began to complete them one by one. When Yang Chun arrived at the Green Jade Immortal Island, Shi Shanshan was not there, but when she left, she had already said that she would come back soon. So Yang Chun also waited at the Green Jade Immortal Island. He was the husband of Shi Shanshan, and he lived in Shi Shanshan's house. No one could say a word of no. It was in the process of waiting that Yang Chun also learned from the chatting of several servants of Shi Shanshan that Shi Shanshan was excluded from the sect during this period, and he was furious. Shi Shanshan was a person of the Green Jade Immortal Island. She did not give trouble to her own sect. She solved the problem by herself, and she also took on dangerous tasks to train herself. Shi Shanshan had Shi Shanshan's pride. This kind of trivial matter, in her eyes, was probably not a big deal at all. She, who was focused on her cultivation, did not want to be distracted to deal with this kind of small discord. Yang Chun could understand this. But this did not mean that Yang Chun could tolerate these people treating his wife like this. As the husband of Shi Shanshan, his wife was wronged, and she was wronged in her mother's house. In any case, Yang Chun had to seek justice for his wife. Of course, it was not that the faction of Shi Shanshan and her master song Huan did not support Shi Shanshan. On the contrary, they attached great importance to Shi Shanshan. However, Shi Shanshan was not delicate enough to complain to her master about any small things. These small things that were not worth mentioning, perhaps Song Huan and their faction still did not know. Only the personal servants of Sher Shanshan could understand from the resources allocated by the sect that they were choked by some people in the sect, but they did not dare to tell others easily. Occasionally, they chatted secretly, which was heard by Yang Chun. With Yang Chen's ability, there was no movement in Sher Shanshan's abode that could not be hidden from his eyes and ears. The servants chatted secretly, but it was as if they were talking in Yang Chen's ears, incomparably clear. Yang Chun only smiled coldly in response to this kind of secret tricks, using things that Sher Shanshan did not care about to threaten him. Those in charge were not very smart. Yang Chun was not that incompetent to fight with them. However, no reaction was not Yang Chen's style. Since the other party had already made a move, Yang Chun naturally had to take it. Sher Shanshan's affairs were Yang Chen's affairs. As a husband, it was his duty to come forward and solve it. The tit-for-tat thing was too easy to solve. He found the people of the Zue Immortal house in the market of the Green Jade Immortal Island, and then asked them to send a letter to Shang Wanfeng. There was no other meaning in the letter, but to let Shang Wanfeng double the auction interval of the appearance pill that was held in the Green Jade Immortal Island auction house every once in a while, and then reduce the number of the Green Jade Immortal Island by half. Almost most of the disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island were female, and the demand for the appearance pill was a very terrifying market. Yang Chen's arrangement soon caused the madness of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Chapter 1191. The appearance pill refined by Yang Chun, in the eyes of female cultivators, was an important strategic resource comparable to the questioning inner heart pill and the 100-year pill. That's right, it was a strategic resource. In the minds of female cultivators, the appearance pill was so important. Who didn't like to be youthful and beautiful? Who was willing to let their hair grow old? As long as it was a woman, there was no one who did not pay attention to their appearance. In terms of profit alone, the profit margin of the appearance pill far exceeded that of the questioning inner heart pill, the 100-year pill. The auction of the appearance pill of the Wanbao Tower has always been a big event for the disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Every time the day of the auction came, as long as it was not impossible to come back, almost all the disciples who were eligible to participate would join. The competition was so fierce that it was impossible to see that they were from the same sect. However, all of a sudden, the Wanbao Tower said that the supply was insufficient, and then the auction interval was doubled, but the supply of the appearance pill was reduced by half. The supply inside and outside was reduced by 3/4. How could these female cultivators not be anxious? If all the sects dealt with it in the same way, then it would be fine. The problem was that except for the Green Jade Immortal Island, the supply of the Wanbao Tower and other places had been normal, without any change, which made people have to suspect that the Wanbao Tower was deliberately targeting the Green Jade Immortal Island. It just so happened that the real owner of the Wanbao Tower, Yang Chun, was in the Green Jade Immortal Island, enjoying the grand hospitality of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Could it be that something annoyed Yang Chun, so that he made such a decision? Immediately, someone reported the news to the Lord of Tantai and several core elders, asking them to make a decision. The Lord of Tantai would naturally not pay attention to such trifles on weekdays. The appearance pill that Yang Chun gave her in the past had the best effect. She didn't have to worry about the change of her appearance in the mortal world. Of course, the same was true for several core high-level members. Those who really cared were some of the female elders below. To be honest, the appearance-preserving pill was only targeted at female cultivators who loved beauty. Its effect was nothing but retaining one's beauty. It couldn't improve one's state of mind like the questioning inner heart pill, nor could it directly improve one's spiritual power like the 100-year pill. For the sect, it was just an expensive consumable, not something indispensable for the development of the sect. But things had to be considered for more aspects. Today, Wanbao Tower could reduce the number of appearance pills of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Tomorrow, would they be able to block the neck of the Green Jade Immortal Island on the questioning inner heart pills and the 100 Years pill? This was a major event, and he couldn't wait until then to think of a remedy. If there was any problem now, it must be solved immediately. Otherwise, when the other sects surpassed the Green Jade Immortal Island, it would be too late for everyone to cry. From the establishment of cooperation with Chunyang Palace to the present, the strength of Chunyang Palace has soared, but relatively speaking, the strength of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect has grown more. From the perspective of proportion, Chunyang Palace has grown a lot, but purely from the perspective of development, the benefits of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect are much greater than those of Chunyang Palace. Because of the cooperative relationship with Chunyang Palace, the strength of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect has now steadily surpassed the Five Elements sect and the Chinquin sect and directly caught up with the Taishaman. If not for this, the three major sects would not be in a hurry to force a few beautiful women around Yangchun. The key was still Yangchun. Was it because Shi Shanshan's absence that caused his dissatisfaction? No one at the top knew, but if they wanted to ask Yangchun directly, it might be very embarrassing. They had to investigate what happened first. First of all, from the cooperation with the Chunyang Palace, the Green Jade Immortal Island checked and did not find any problems. Everyone unanimously followed the cooperation agreement that had been set a long time ago. Basically, there was no bullying incident, and everything in the cooperation was normal. Since it was not a problem with the sect's cooperative relationship, it was a problem with Shi Shanshan. Then, everything since Shi Shanshan returned to the sect was put in front of the Lord of Tantai and the core elders. Shi Shanshan's life was very irregular. After returning, she had been busy with the sect's tasks, and everything seemed normal. But immediately, the elders found something unusual. The sect's tasks that Shi Shanshan performed were all extremely dangerous tasks. Several of them even required the cultivation base of the Dashang stage to complete them, but they were also recorded on Shi Shanshan's head. If this was the case, it was easy to explain. After all, Shi Shanshan was a master who could fight with the Dashang stage Elder Min Huafeng. It was reasonable for her to perform difficult tasks. But referring to the records of the sect's resources received by Shi Shanshan, it seemed a bit unusual. According to the consistent habits of the disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island, they could receive a monthly allowance from the sect every month for cultivation. Even if the disciple herself was not there, her servants would receive it on time on a monthly basis. Almost everyone was like this, even the Lord of Tantai was no exception. But the records of Shi Shanshan's collection showed that from the time when Shi Shanshan went to the Demon Continent to gain experience and left the sect, it was normal at first, but later the allocated resources became less and less, and it was not until Shi Shanshan returned to the sect that it returned to normal. Everyone understood the fickleness of human feelings. At that time, they thought that Shi Shanshan had been destroyed, so it was normal to deduct in this regard. But after returning, the sect still doubled all the previous debts to Shi Shanshan, so there should be no problem. However, the collection record showed that Shi Shanshan never received it herself, only her servants received it. And it was not once a month like everyone else, but once a year. Even so, it was not always possible to receive the full amount every time, which explained the problem. Why did Yangchun deduct the appearance pill? Because Shi Shanshan's due portion was deducted, and it was greatly delayed. Who was responsible for the distribution of materials? Without waiting for the Lord of Tantai to ask, Elder Min had already asked angrily, "Get her to come here immediately." Although Shi Shanshan and Elder Min were evenly matched in the past, this did not hinder Elder Min's appreciation of Shi Shanshan. In particular, Shi Shanshan could be regarded as a general in her faction. Her own people were actually bullied like this. How could this be? What's the matter with Shi Shanshan's monthly allowance? Tell me. The disciple in charge soon appeared in front of the Lord of Tantai and the elders. The Lord of Tantai also appeased Elder Min and asked first. So many high-level people were there, asking about this matter. How could the disciple in charge not know that he was in big trouble? Thinking of the recent incident of Wanbao Tower's appearance pill, and then thinking about the relationship between Yangchun and Wanbao Tower and Shi Shanshan, there was no need to ask. This was Yangchun's counterattack. The 5th grade alchemy grandmaster wanted to find trouble with an ordinary disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Then what good result would she have? It's not the disciple's fault. With a thud, the disciple in charge knelt on the ground, and he was almost scared out of his wits. He shouted quickly, "This is all the arrangement of Elder Lu. The disciple is just acting according to the elder's instructions." Chapter 1192. Elder Lu. Min Huafeng immediately knew who the Elder Lu was. Other than Lu Ziwei, who had been humiliated by Shi Shanshan, there was no one else. This kind of small means that can't be put on the table doesn't seem to have much impact on Shi Shanshan. However, if you want to seriously explore the mystery, it was also the only way to deal with people without discussion. What did cultivation rely on? Wasn't it resources? Without resources, the speed of cultivation would be greatly reduced. To a cultivator, this was a matter of life and death. Even if Shi Shanshan is rich and powerful, she doesn't care much about this small portion of the sect. However, this kind of endless little means can always make you feel disgusted. It will always make you feel upset, right? As a disciple of the sect, she couldn't harm her fellow disciples, and Shi Shanshan wouldn't trouble others with such trivial matters. Thus, she could only swallow her pride and suffer in silence. To cultivate one's heart, it was important for one's thoughts to be clear. If she kept encountering such depressing and irritating matters, her cultivation would be affected no matter what. Even if she couldn't disgust her with one incident, Shi Shanshan wouldn't be able to hold back her anger after being repeatedly arranged. No matter how Shi Shanshan reacted, it wouldn't end well. Everyone had climbed up step by step from the bottom. Who wouldn't be aware of these underhanded tricks? Lu Ziwei had actually set her sights on the sect's talented disciple, Shi Shanshan. If this could be tolerated, what couldn't? How dare she do this? Lu Ziwei, you deserve to die. Elder Min scolded loudly, intending to pursue Lu Ziwei's responsibility. You can't say that. Elder Bei Xuanyu, who was at the side, spoke slowly and stopped Elder Min's words just before she flared up. Since Elder Lu is in charge of distributing the sect's resources, she must have her reasons for making such arrangements. Moreover, it's not like she's embezzling. She's just delaying the distribution. Even if there's something wrong, it shouldn't be considered as deserving of death, right? Bei Xuanyu's words weren't surprising. She was also the target of Shi Shanshan's instant defeat. At that time, Lu Ziwei wasn't the only one who was embarrassed. Lu Ziwei's disciple, Li Ziqi, and Elder Bei Xuanyu were included. Lu Ziwei was not only for herself, but also to please Bei Xuanyu. Everyone was in the same boat. Min Huafeng wanted to pursue Lu Ziwei's responsibility. Bei Xuanyu, of course, had to defend. When it came to the dispute between the two core elders, even the Lord of Tantai couldn't be obviously biased towards which one. The forces on both sides were similar. It was not worth it to cause internal strife in the Green Jade Immortal Island because of this. Speaking of which, everyone was still afraid of Yang Chen's side. This would lead to problems in the supply of questioning inner heart pills and 100-year pills in the future. If this problem could be solved, the others were not the focus. Although Shi Shanshan was Yang Chen's wife, the Green Jade Immortal Island was her sect. The decision of the sect, as an outsider, Yang Chen didn't need to interfere, right? So, my family Shanshan has to be deducted for no reason? Min Huafeng was furious. Such an obvious calculation, but she still dared to argue openly. It was really a bit too much. The Lord of Tantai looked at the dispute between the two core elders. His face was calm, and he didn't say a word. As the master of the sect, it was necessary to balance the power below at all times. He couldn't let one sect dominate, so that it would be easy to control. However, recently, Bei Xuanyu and the others were indeed a bit too much. Some things were not only aimed at Shi Shanshan. Many disciples had been calculated by them in the open and in the dark. If this practice continued to be encouraged, it would also make many people disloyal. Elder Lu's actions are indeed inappropriate. She provoked first, and now she's taking revenge. I think it's better for her to be stripped of her position as an elder. Another elder at the side spoke up. It was a relatively fair statement. No way. Bei Xuanyu immediately pulled a long face. Even if Lu Ziwei was in the wrong, she couldn't remove her position as an elder just because of such a small mistake. If she succeeded, who would follow her? Even an elder like Lu Ziwei couldn't protect her, let alone others. If we don't do this, how are we going to solve the problem of the appearance pill? Min Huafeng naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity and immediately asked. Now that Yang Chun was obviously going to seek justice for Shi Shanshan, if they didn't satisfy Yang Chun, it would be useless for them to say anything here. It's just the appearance pill. It's not like we have to have it. Bei Xuanyu snorted coldly and put on a tough stance. Her words caused the elders present to curse in their hearts. They didn't need it because Yang Chun had already given them a better appearance pill. However, the disciples under him were still scrambling for it. One appearance pill could only ensure one's youth for 100 years. Who wouldn't be willing to buy a few more? Some disciples worked hard to save up money just to buy a few more appearance pills. If they really did, as Bei Xuanyu said, it would be strange if these disciples didn't explode in anger. Whoever caused the trouble should be the one to solve it. Min Huafeng laughed coldly. After we solve the problem of outsiders, we can talk about what crime Lu Ziwei committed. The Lord of Tanai finally nodded his head. This was the attitude that a sect leader should have. However, she didn't have much hope that Bei Xuanyu would be able to persuade Yang Chun. Just by looking at the price Yang Chun sold the pill formulas to the 5 big sect, she could imagine it. Even if Bei Xuanyu could solve it, it would be a big fraud that would make her distressed. At this moment, Bei Xuanyu had no choice but to bite the bullet and come to see Yang Chun. Now that Yang Chun was a distinguished guest, although Lu Ziwei was an elder, she couldn't let her go to apologize. Maybe only Bei Xuanyu could give up her face. What surprised Bei Xuanyu was that Yang Chun was refining pills and didn't want to see anyone. On the spot, Bei Xuanyu was so angry that she wanted to ascend to the heavens. The dignified elder of the Green Jade Immortal Island was rejected in her own territory, and she was told by the servant of the original Shi Shanshan. Yang Chun did not appear. How could she not be filled with anger? However, this anger only lasted for less than a moment. Bei Xuanyu noticed a very unusual aura, which was floating out from the place where Yang Chun, who claimed to be refining pills, was located. This was not a smell, but a wisp of aura that made Bei Xuanyu feel terrified. It was just a wisp, but it made a master of the Deshang stage feel this way. What kind of miracle was this? Not only Bei Xuanyu, but the other Deshang stage masters of the Green Jade Immortal Island were basically aware of this wisp of aura. Soon, in front of Shi Shanshan's small courtyard, it was full of the high-level members of the Green Jade Immortal Island. However, everyone stood at the door, and no one went in. What's going on here? The Lord of Tantai was the first to ask. Chapter 1193. Several of Shi Shanshan's maids have never been as proud as today. The Green Jade Immortal Island, from the island master to several of the biggest elders, were all stopped by them, standing at the door of Shi Shanshan. From the establishment of the Green Jade Immortal Island to the present, there have been no servants who have been so glorious. The husband of their own young lady was really an existence that people looked up to. No one would care about a few maids. Most of the time, it was these maids who were excited and trembling. The Lord of Tantai and the others only cared about what kind of pill Yang Chun was refining. This is the aura of the wind tribulation. Elder Min Huafeng frowned and said with a dignified look, she has already noticed the aura of the wind tribulation in that aura, but she doesn't know why. This aura was only a very faint one, not enough to pose a greater threat. Most of the people present had the opportunity to see the predecessors of the sect crossing their tribulation and ascending, so it was not only Min Huafeng who had such a feeling. When Elder Min said this, everyone nodded. Did Yang Chun say what kind of medicinal pill he was refining? The Lord of Tantai called a maid to serve and asked with a pleasant face. I don't know. The son-in-law only said that he was going to retreat to refine pills and wait for the young lady to come back, and he didn't say much else. The maid bowed and replied. However, when the son-in-law first came, he seemed to mention something. It seems that he wants to strengthen his tribulation or something. I don't know if it is related to this medicinal pill. The aura of the wind tribulation, strengthening the tribulation, If these were linked together, it was easy to associate something. Everyone couldn't help but get excited. If their guess was not wrong, it should be a medicinal pill similar to the heaven-seizing pill that could increase the success rate of the tribulation, or something else related. It was not too far off. However, in this way, there was trouble. Sure, Shanshan's matter has not yet been explained, but Yang Chun has made these new medicinal pills. If the Green Jade Immortal Island wanted them, it would not be so easy. Previously, Yang Chun would give them a 50% discount because of Sure Shanshan. Now that Sure Shanshan was being suppressed in the sect, how could Yang Chun get over it? The few of them stared at Bei Shuangyu. Bei Shuangyu felt uncomfortable and said, "Why are you looking at me? We still don't know what pill he's refining." Although her words sounded tough, Bei Shuangyu was already feeling a little guilty. Yang Chun made it clear that he wanted to seek justice for Sure Shanshan. This was the case with the appearance pill before, and now this medicinal pill must have these reasons. Otherwise, it would not be alchemy in the Green Jade Immortal Island, but in Chunyang Palace. She had been obstructing him. If this medicinal pill was really important to the sect, she was afraid that Bei Shuangyu herself would not have any good results. Everyone was waiting curiously. The aura overflowing from Yang Chen's alchemy did not change at all. After 2 or 3 days, the aura slowly faded, and there was no trace left. Then, the tightly shut door opened. It seemed that he didn't expect the high-level members of the Green Jade Immortal Island to be there. Yang Chen's face was obviously a little surprised, but he was soon indifferent. He had seen a lot of big shots, so there was no need to be too surprised. "I'm sorry, seniors, this younger generation junior was bored waiting, so I borrowed Shanshan's place to try to refine a few medicinal pills." Yang Chen apologized to the Lord of Tantai and the others. "It's really neglectful. Who would care about this kind of small thing?" What everyone wanted to know was the new medicinal pill that Yang Chen refined. Min Huafeng was straightforward and immediately asked, "Yang Chen, what medicinal pill are you refining? There's even the aura of the wind tribulation." With Min Huafeng's identity, even if Yang Chen was the only 5th-grade alchemy master, he was still a junior. There was no problem in calling Yang Chen this way. Of course, Yang Chen would not have any dissatisfaction with Min Huafeng in this form of address. This younger generation junior just had a sudden whim. "I want to refine some medicinal pills to exercise my state of mind." Yang Chen did not conceal it. In fact, he did not intend to conceal it. Some medicinal pills that contain the aura of the Yin fire tribulation and the wind tribulation that can trigger the outbreak of the heart demon on a small scale. This younger generation junior calls it the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. When Yang Chen said this, everyone understood the use of this medicinal pill. Not only could it feel the taste of the Yin fire tribulation and the wind tribulation in advance, but it was not too powerful and could trigger the heart demon on a small scale. It was indeed the best thing to temper the state of mind. It was also very simple to say. It was just a medicinal pill that was fused with the demonic energy and a little bit of the Yin fire tribulation or the wind tribulation. There was not much unusual in the technique, but the raw materials were not something that ordinary people could find. Of course, that was for others. For Yang Chen, there was no problem at all. There was as much demonic energy as he wanted, and if he waited for the core of the demon continent to be refined, it would be even more endless. Yang Chen has seen the Yin fire tribulation many times. Even when Lady Fanghua was crossing her tribulation, Yang Chen was within the attack range of the tribulation and collected a lot of the Yin fire tribulation's aura. As for the wind tribulation, the gathering point in the core area of the demon continent, there was a period of time when people continuously crossed their tribulation. It was not very difficult for Yang Chen to collect some of the wind tribulation's aura. For others, of course, there was no such possibility. The aura of the Yin fire tribulation and the wind tribulation could not be collected at will. When the average person crossed their tribulation, they could only be at ease by concentrating to the extreme. Where would Yang Chen have such a powerful technique? Therefore, when Yang Chen naturally took out 2 medicinal pills, one was the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill of the Yuanying stage, and the other was the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill of the Deshang stage. In order to distinguish, The one at the Yuanying stage was called the Seven Emotions Pill by Yang Chun, and the one at the Deshang stage was called the Six Desires Pill. The same medicinal effect, but the level of the person who took it was different. Whether it was the aura of the Yin fire tribulation or the wind tribulation, it was perfectly wrapped in the medicinal pill, and it could not be detected from the outside world. Only after taking the medicinal pill could the medicinal qi be stimulated. Under the aura of the two kinds of tribulation, the heart demon began to be triggered by the demonic energy. The process would be very uncomfortable, but as long as one could successfully survive it, their state of mind would be greatly improved, and because of the additional feeling of the aura of the tribulation in advance, the possibility of crossing the tribulation in the future would be much greater. At least they have tried how to deal with the heart demon outbreak in the case of the tribulation. Such a medicinal pill was simply the best preparation before crossing the tribulation. No one could resist such a temptation. Especially the Lord of Tantai, although he was already at the peak Yuanying stage, he had not crossed the tribulation because of the lack of confidence for the time being. With this, he might be able to succeed right away, although no one has tried the effect. But since Yang Chun made a move, how could it be useless? It seemed that if the Green Jade Immortal Island did not solve the trouble of Shi Shan Shan, it would take a lot of trouble to get this batch of medicinal pills. Island Master, if you don't mind, you could try this Seven Emotions pill, just to provide some reference for this younger generation junior. Since he was going to spend the capital, Yang Chen, of course, put down the capital and directly took out a refined medicinal pill and sent it to the Lord of Tantai. Chapter 1194. By triggering the heart demon in the aura of the Yin fire tribulation and the wind tribulation to temper the state of mind, this was definitely an idea that would make anyone slap the table and applaud. Everyone could understand how much benefit the person who took the medicinal pill would get in this situation. There was still the aura of the tribulation itself, but the power was less than 1% of the real tribulation. It was extremely safe, and after triggering the heart demon, the difficulty of resisting increased. It could be said that taking a 7 emotions and 6 desires pill was equivalent to simulating the tribulation once. This was for those who were on the verge of crossing the tribulation, but they were not fully sure. It was simply a wonderful product that was more timely than the timely rain. It was not that no one had thought of such a medicinal pill, but in the mortal world, not to mention the 6 desires pill that contained the wind tribulation aura, even if it was the 7 emotions pill, which only contained the aura of the Yin fire tribulation, no one could do it. Even the masters of the Deshang stage were no exception. Without Yang Chen's human immortal level spiritual awareness, without Yang Chen's means beyond this world, it was impossible to do this. Without the raw materials, even if it was a great principal golden immortal, it was impossible to make a 7 emotions and 6 desires pill out of thin air. Such a medicinal pill, wherever it was placed, it was a good thing for people to fight for. The most exciting thing was that the Lord of Tantai herself was on the verge of this tribulation. She was at the peak Yuanying stage. Even if she was the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island, she still had some lack of confidence. Yang Chun sent a 7 emotions pill so easily. Even though the Lord of Tantai had been accustomed to big scenes, and there would be no guilt in front of any earth-shattering characters. But in the face of this 7 emotions pill, the Lord of Tantai still couldn't help but tremble slightly. These people present were still immersed in shock. They were staring blankly, waiting for the Lord of Tantai to make a decision. No one would doubt that Yang Chun took a poison to murder the Lord of Tantai. Yang Chun would never have such courage, nor would he have the motive to do so. The only thing that was somewhat doubtful was whether the medicinal pill refined by Yang Chun had such a medicinal effect. It was not that they doubted the ability of Yang Chun. It was really that such a thing was too incredible. It was unbelievable that someone in the world could do this. Yang Chun did not care about the unbelievable eyes of the people in front of him. This was human nature and a normal phenomenon. Even the questioning inner heart pill in the past, wasn't it taken by the 2 Deshang stage masters of the 2 major sect? The current situation was easy to solve. As long as the Lord of Tantai took it, he would know the effect of the pill. The island master, who usually wouldn't change even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of her, at this moment, in the face of a small medicinal pill, her hands couldn't help but tremble. When she held it in her hand, there was still some uncontrollable excitement. When the surrounding elders saw this, they all tacitly retreated more than a dozen feet, and then set up a series of restrictions. Shanshan's small courtyard was directly requisitioned. The Lord of Tantai was protected in the middle of the two protective arrays. The elders also sat down around him and watched carefully. The Lord of Tantai, who had taken the 7 emotions pill, immediately sat down cross-legged and put on a deep meditation posture, with his 5 hearts facing the sky. This was the most comfortable and easiest posture to control the inner demon. Soon, the medicinal effect of the medicinal pill began to spread, and the Lord of Tantai immediately noticed its power. The surrounding elders could not detect the situation of the Lord of Tantai. There was no way around it. This was a medicinal pill that completely targeted the inner demon. When the inner demon attacked, it was invisible and formless. If it was not uncontrollable and caused people to go crazy, others would not be able to detect it at all. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the face of the Lord of Tantai. They stared intently and concentrated. There was no way around it. Who made this a medicinal pill that was useful to each of them? Every man for himself. Even the cultivators were no exception. When it involved their own vital interests, anyone would pay close attention to it. A very exaggerated smile appeared on the face of the Lord of Tantai. He did not know what she had experienced. The smile lasted for a long time, and then it turned into another expression of anger. The surrounding elders watched the Lord of Tantai constantly changing emotions and changing expressions in that small circle. What shocked them a little was that the Lord of Tantai even cried once, which made the elders couldn't believe their eyes. From serving as the island master to the present for hundreds of years, the Lord of Tantai has never shown such fragile emotions. It was even 100 times more difficult to make a great man who was infinitely close to the master of the Deshang stage cry than to kill him. The mood of the elders began to get excited. This was the effect of the real observation. If the 7 emotions pill worked, then the 6 desires pill would have the same effect. They didn't dare to say anything else, but the aura of the wind tribulation that escaped during the refining could not be faked in any way. Unlike the joy and excitement of the other elders, the mood of the elder Bei Shuangyu was very contradictory. Speaking of which, the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill that Yang Chun refined should be good for everyone. With the relationship between Chunyang Palace and the Green Jade Immortal Island, with the relationship between Yang Chun and Shanshan, presumably this kind of benefit would never be left behind in the Green Jade Immortal Island. This medicinal pill, for Bei Shuangyu, was also of great benefit. Who doesn't want to have a greater chance of crossing the tribulation? However, she and Lu Ziwei, who participated in suppressing Shanshan, would never get any benefits from this matter. On the contrary, the sect originally only intended to strive to maintain a balance of strength. Under the situation of mutual compromise, at most, they would make up for the portion of Shanshan that had been deducted before. Even if it was doubled, it was just some ordinary things for cultivation, and there would be no big loss. But after the success of the medicinal pill, the outcome would be very different. The sect needed the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, and it was bound to bow to Yang Chun again. Then, it would not be easy to deal with the matter of targeting Shanshan. Not to mention others. Lu Ziwei would definitely be punished, and she, the elder, was estimated to be unable to escape the joint responsibility of the lack of restraint. Yang Chen's move was simply a drastic measure. Coupled with the previous appearance pill, he didn't even need to say a word, and the sect would have to find a way to settle Yang Chen's dissatisfaction. If this was the result, Bei Shuangyu was absolutely unacceptable. The contradictory mood made Bei Shuangyu didn't know how to deal with herself. She wanted to give up Lu Ziwei, but she couldn't put down her face. Moreover, if she gave up, it would have a huge impact on her future. If she couldn't protect her own people, who would be willing to follow her? Chapter 1195. Different from Bei Shuangyu's mood, but slightly different from the elders, was Elder Min Minhuafeng. Although Elder Min did not serve as the hall master of any hall, she was indeed a powerful force in the sect. Unlike Bei Shuangyu, Min Huafeng fully supported the Lord of Tantai, so her status in the sect was also quite high. According to reason, whether it was Song Huan or Shi Shanshan in her faction, no one should dare to have any ideas. However, Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei both suffered a big loss under the hands of Shi Shanshan and lost face, so they tried their best to target Shi Shanshan. In addition, Shi Shanshan was not the kind of person who liked to snitch on others. Her proud character made her not care about these little tricks at all. After returning to the sect, she has been working hard to cultivate in order to achieve the goal of Yangchun. As a result, Elder Min did not know about these disgusting little tricks of Lu Ziwei. However, as an elder of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Shi Shanshan was still under her protection. Unexpectedly, she suffered this kind of loss, and it was Yang Chun, an outsider, who found out and sought justice for Shi Shanshan. This was simply a slap in the face of Elder Min Huafeng. She couldn't even protect her own people, and she had to ask for help from outsiders. Could she still raise her head in the sect? Both of them had different thoughts, and they were eager to find a way in their minds. The Lord of Tanai finally had a problem. After the Lord of Tantai took the elixir, she meditated for a month. During this month, everyone saw her face constantly changing expressions and constantly releasing all kinds of emotions. They thought that it would be like this, but they did not expect that at this time, the Lord of Tantai's body suddenly broke out. Puff, a mouthful of red blood sprayed directly from the mouth of the Lord of Tantai. The body of the Lord of Tantai, who was immersed in the tempering of the mind, suddenly became a little sluggish. She didn't know why, but her internal organs were shaken. Under the invasion of the heart demon, she couldn't help but vomit blood. This accident shocked everyone. All the elders jumped up in the first time and looked at the Lord of Tantai in the circle worriedly. The only person who was ecstatic in her heart was Elder Bei Shuangyu. The Lord of Tantai suddenly vomited blood. There was no other reason besides Yang Chen's elixir. This alone was enough to make her attack. Bold thief, you dare to plot against the island master. Bei Shuangyu immediately seized this rare opportunity, shouted at Yang Chun, and rushed up directly. Don't surrender. She came up and first put the crime of plotting against the Lord of Tantai on Yang Chun, and immediately took him down. As long as Yang Chun was taken down, there was no need to worry about not being able to solve the dilemma. Maybe they could also get the secret of becoming a 5th-grade alchemist from Yang Chun. As long as this secret was in their hands, Yang Chun would no longer be useful. How could the sect embarrass the dignified elder of Tantai for a useless guy? It had to be said that the speed of Yang Chen's rise like a comet not only made the people of Taishaman curious, but even the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect, which had a good relationship with Chunyang Palace, had speculated and analyzed it. Speaking of which, in this regard, the speculations of several major sects were all in the same direction. Yang Chan was young, and Chunyang Palace did not have enough heritage, so it was impossible to know so many things. It must be known that some of the things that Yang Chun knew were simply beyond the scope of the mortal world. The only explanation was that there was a master in the spiritual world or the immortal world who was guiding him. Combined with Yang Chen's performance, the most likely explanation in the mortal world was that Yang Chun had a magic weapon that was possessed by a master. This unknown master was constantly guiding Yang Chun, so Yang Chun could have such an enchanting performance. Otherwise, with Yang Chen's aptitude, it was impossible to be so amazing. This was the only explanation, and it was also the explanation that everyone recognized. However, speculation was speculation, and no one directly made a move on the surface. Everyone had seen the end of a Taishaman, Hu Qianni. The lesson was not far away, and no one would repeat the same mistakes. But this does not mean that when there is an opportunity, people will not be tempted. Now Bei Shuangyu had such an idea. After she shouted that sentence, Bei Shuangyu knew that she had no way out. Although the Lord of Tantai vomited blood, it was not a fatal injury. If she waited until she woke up and said that it was not because of Yang Chen's medicinal pill, wouldn't she be making more mistakes? The only chance to turn the tables was to catch Yang Chun, and after succeeding, it would become a fait accompli. Bei Shuangyu was so fast that even when she was shouting, she had already started to make a move. A distance of a few dozen feet for a master of the Deshang stage was almost useless, and the attack immediately fell on Yang Chun. The action was so fast that even the other elders hadn't reacted yet. Elder Min just jumped up, and her attention was still on the Lord of Tantai. On this side, Yang Chun had already been approached by Elder Bei Shuangyu. She only had time to shout, "Stop!" and the situation over there was already out of control. Everyone felt that Yang Chun could only be captured with his hands tied. Bei Shuangyu was a master of the Deshang stage, and Yang Chun was now getting worse and worse. From a middle Yuanying stage to the early Yuanying stage, his cultivation base was reduced. How could he be the opponent of Elder Bei? Fortunately, everyone heard Bei Shuangyu saying that he would be captured with his hands tied, and everyone didn't care. It was just that capturing Yang Chun was not a big deal. Anyway, the Lord of Tantai vomited blood, and Yang Chun was the most suspicious. In any case, Yang Chun had to bear some responsibility. Therefore, no one had the intention to stop it. Even Elderman just shouted, but did not make a move so quickly. Bei Shuangyu had already vaguely seen that after Yang Chun was killed by her, she couldn't stop herself, and everyone would quarrel. A little guy in the Yuanying stage, if he was killed, would Chunyang Palace dare to shout at the Green Jade Immortal Island? The complacent mood didn't even last for a blink of an eye. Even her eyelids hadn't completely fallen. Elder Bei felt that her body was light, as if she suddenly lost control of her body. Then she sank again, and then fell to the ground heavily. Her face was down and directly embedded into the ground. The sudden change made Elder Bei extremely surprised. Although she was not injured, it made her lose a lot of face. Just as she was about to get up in anger, suddenly there was a chill on the back of her neck, and then a thought that made people tremble and their hair didn't dare to flutter or will spread through her whole body. This time, Elder Bei didn't even dare to get up from the ground. She could only crawl in a human-shaped pit and didn't dare to move. Elder Bei, you are too reckless. Yang Chen's voice sounded above Elder Bei's head. This younger generation junior has also experienced in the Demon Continent. If I accidentally hurt you, this younger generation junior can't afford it. Chapter 1196. Mentioning the experience in the Demon Continent, it was obvious that Yang Chun was taking this opportunity to obviously express his dissatisfaction, and it was also a very serious warning. If Elder Bei dared to move easily, and Yang Chun accidentally hurt her or even killed her, there would be the best excuse to prevaricate. Anyway, everyone knew that after the experience in the Demon Continent, there would be a kind of trouble that couldn't be stopped. At this point, Shi Shanshan had already demonstrated in front of the elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island more than 100 years ago. The reason why Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei would target Shi Shanshan was because of this reason. In the end, it was still Bei Shuangyu who made the first move. Yang Chun only needed to use this reason to kill Bei Shuangyu, and others couldn't say anything. Although killing the elder of the Green Jade Immortal Island was definitely a big crime, but looking at the posture just now, the elders present were not blind. At this moment, everyone understood what Bei Shuangyu wanted to do. Min Huafeng was particularly angry. Bei Shuangyu not only did not mean to converge, but she became even more aggressive and wanted to kill Yang Chun in front of her, completely ignoring the development of the sect and the trouble facing Chunyang Palace. You must know that Yang Chun was still a 5th-grade alchemist master. If he was killed, how many masters who have been waiting in line for Yang Chen's alchemy would hate them? This was not counting the other 4 major sects. No matter how powerful the Green Jade Immortal Island was and how rapid its recent development was, it was impossible to challenge the 4 major sects at the same time. If something really happened to Yang Chun, this was simply the best excuse for the 4 major sects. It was not impossible for them to unite and kill the Green Jade Immortal Island. Even if the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect were on good terms, but the alliance of the 3 major sects was enough to suppress the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect to the extreme. These were all things between the sect, and the reactions of Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, Gao Yu, and Gong Sunling were not included. At this time, no one would ignore the four of them. Shi Shanshan alone could fight Min Huafeng to a draw. What would happen if there were four of them? If they united, maybe these ordinary elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island would not be able to escape their attack. All the elders had a thought in their minds. Bei Shuangyu wanted to push the sect into the abyss. Her mind was so vicious, it seemed that she was no longer suitable to be the elder of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Of course, this was not the most shocking thing. What surprised them the most was that the sneak attack of Bei Shuangyu, a master of the Deshang stage. Even if they were close at hand, they could not react, but Yangchen not only took it, but also made Bei Shuangyu embarrassed in one move, and she did not even dare to move. Such strength, even Min Huafeng could not do it. Everyone saw the incredible scene. Bei Shuangyu's figure had just appeared in front of Yangchen, and her magic weapon had already begun to attack, but Yangchen just gently stretched out his hand. In the blink of an eye, he grabbed Bei Shuangyu's neck and pulled it down. The Deshang stage Elder Bei was directly smashed into the ground by a junior in the early Yuanying stage. Subsequently, Yangchen just easily took out a ghost blade that they had all heard of and placed it on the back of Bei Shuangyu's neck. Then Bei Shuangyu became more obedient than the most tame kitten. Not only did she not dare to raise her head, but she even did not dare to shake her body. What kind of terrifying scene was this? No one would think that Bei Shuangyu was giving in to the younger generation, and no one would think that Bei Shuangyu was afraid of death. One must know that such a famous person would rather die than allow herself to be humiliated. If this scene was changed to them, they would definitely hit their head on the blade and kill themselves. Such a great humiliation. Even if they survived, they would not have the face to see anyone. But not only did Bei Shuangyu not take the initiative to ask for death, she did not even dare to move. What did this mean? No one was a fool. They all understood that there must be something here that they did not know. At this moment, Yangchen acted as if nothing had happened. He even let go of the handle of the ghost blade in his hand. He just put the blade on Bei Shuangyu's neck out of thin air. He sat on the ground, still calmly looking at the Lord of Tantai in the field. Although Bei Shuangyu was in the wrong first, she was still the elder of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Even if it was for the sake of the same sect, the other elders could not watch her suffer such a great humiliation. In front of them, such humiliation of Bei Shuangyu was simply a slap in their faces. The faces of several elders immediately became serious, and the atmosphere was more solemn. Yangchen, Min Huafeng did not speak. It was another elder who stared at Yangchen with a very unkind gaze. Elder Bei's behavior is wrong, but out of concern for the Lord of the island, it is excusable. Put away your blade. Anyone in any sect who saw their fellow disciples being dealt with like this would have the same feeling. If it weren't for the strength that Yangchen had just shown was too frightening, even Elder Bei Shuangyu couldn't withstand it. Otherwise, they would have already grabbed him. First, they were afraid of Yangchen. Second, it was their own people who started first. Third, Yangchen's identity as an alchemy master and the cooperation between Chunyang Palace and the Green Jade Immortal Island for many years made them not take action immediately, but their tone was unprecedentedly harsh. However, although the tone was harsh, the words were not so righteous. Fools could see the purpose of Bei Shuangyu. In addition to being angry, there was another feeling, that was shame. As the elder of the Deshang stage of the Green Jade Immortal Island, not to mention sneak attacking a Yuanying stage junior, she was also stopped by a move. After losing face, she didn't say that she wanted to end it herself, but she lost face for the sect. In addition to feeling that she had lost face, what other feelings could she have? This younger generation junior has offended you. Yangchen was well-behaved, his tone was calm, and he didn't make a move, and he put away the immortal beheading blade. Seeing Yangchen like this, the faces of several elders were much better. Giving them face like this, when dealing with the aftermath, they had to be partial to Yangchen. What made them feel strange was that although there was no threat of the immortal beheading blade on the back of Bei Shuangyu's neck, Bei Shuangyu's body was still lying in the same place, not moving. Several elders were surprised, and when they explored with their spiritual awareness, they found that Bei Xuanyu had fainted and lost consciousness. They didn't know if she was angry or scared. It was more likely that the former was the case. What a shame. Several elders shook their heads secretly in their hearts. They really didn't know how to express their feelings at the moment. They only felt that their faces were steaming hot, and they didn't even dare to look at Yang Chen's eyes. Fortunately, Yang Chen did not look at them, but kept staring at the Lord Tantai, which made them feel better. Chapter 1197. Just as everyone was feeling awkward and didn't know if they should help Bei Xuanyu up and send her off, the Lord of Tantai changed again. Pu. Another 2 mouthfuls of blood were spat out. However, there were some small black fragments in the blood. Everyone present was an expert, and they all realized this point. Good sign. The internal injuries and extravasated blood have been forced out. This time, the Lord of Tantai has improved again. Yang Chen looked at the small fragments and the 2 mouthfuls of blood and said in a low voice, "Congratulations." Everyone was experienced and knowledgeable. From the appearance of the Lord of Tantai, they knew that what Yang Chen said was true. After spitting out 2 mouthfuls of blood, the Lord of Tantai became more energetic. This was enough to explain the problem. It was a good thing that the Lord of Tantai's cultivation had improved. This was enough to show that Yang Chen's 7 emotions pill was very useful. Thinking about this, everyone forgot about Bei Xuanyu and focused their attention on the Lord of Tantai. This situation didn't last for long. The elder with the highest cultivation was the first to notice the problem. Then, the other elders also noticed that something was wrong in the sky. The tribulation cloud had arrived and was slowly forming. Needless to say, other than the Lord of Tantai triggering the heavenly tribulation, there was no other possibility. Disperse, Min Hofeng shouted. With a wave of her hand, all the protective restrictions were removed. Then, Elder Min's figure flashed. She led the servants of Shi Shanshan, who were hiding in their rooms and didn't dare to come out, and quickly left the place. Everyone dispersed. An elder took the opportunity to pull Bei Xuanyu up and quickly left. A few elders who were faster had already started to urge the surrounding disciples to disperse and not disturb the Lord of Tantai's tribulation. In less than the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, the surrounding area of several miles became empty, without a single person. None of the disciples who were evacuated had any complaints. They were all outside the circle set up by the elders, looking inside with surprise and joy. Even in the green jade Immortal Island, it was not easy to see the scene of the Yin fire tribulation. The Lord of Tantai had been sitting cross-legged on the ground, even when the tribulation cloud was approaching. Soon, the Yin fire began to burn on the Lord Tantai's body. The first tribulation, the second tribulation, the third tribulation, until the 9th tribulation, the Lord Tantai sat cross-legged with the posture of the 5 hearts facing the sky. His body did not change at all. He quietly endured the 9 Yin fire tribulations and entered the realm of the Mahayana stage. Then, the tribulation clouds dispersed, and a shocking aura was emitted from the Lord of Tantai's body. Tantai Ro, who was the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island, was very imposing on ordinary days. This promotion to the Deshang stage was a step further. Although she had just been promoted to the Deshang stage, in fact, she was already the same as the masters of the late Deshang stage. The island master was the island master. Even if she succeeded in crossing the tribulation, she did not laugh like many people. She was still as calm as ever. After sitting on the ground for a while, she slowly got up, and then her eyes immediately turned to Yang Chen. Congratulations to the island master. The congratulatory voice sounded one after another, and everyone's face was full of joy. Their own island master's successful promotion to the Deshang stage was, of course, a gratifying thing. Only a few core elders knew that the Lord of Tantai could cross the tribulation so easily. Most of the credit should be attributed to Yang Chen's 7 emotions pill. Without the previous tempering of the mind, without the experience of the Yin fire tribulation in advance, the Lord of Tantai didn't even have the confidence to cross the tribulation. Unexpectedly, with just a 7 emotions pill, the Lord of Tantai was promoted to the Dashang stage in one go. He smiled and gestured to the surrounding disciples. Soon, the surrounding disciples dispersed in excitement. This time, they were a feast for the eyes. The situation of a Yuanying stage master crossing the Yin fire tribulation was definitely an experience that they could not exchange for. The remaining elders were not only a few core elders, but almost all the elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island were here. The promotion of the island master to the Dashang stage was a great event for the sect, and it must be celebrated in any case. Yang Chun was soon invited to the VIP reception hall, and once again faced the Lord of Tantai and several core elders. The difference was that this time, the elder Bei Xuanyu was missing. For such a long time, Bei Xuanyu was still in a coma and did not wake up. No matter what the elders did, they could not wake up Bei Xuanyu. Although everyone did not know the reason, it was certain that it was related to Yang Chun. The Lord of Tantai has been protected by the restriction and did not know what happened. Naturally, he also took the opportunity of inviting Yang Chun to the VIP hall to learn about it from the mouths of several other elders. After listening to the story, even the Lord of Tantai couldn't help but blush a little. At the same time, he scolded in his heart. With Bei Xuanyu's behavior, how could she talk to Yang Chun about the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill? The efficacy of the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, the Lord of Tantai had personally tested it and was naturally clear. Such a powerful medicinal pill, how many masters could be created in the sect? How much could the strength of the sect be improved? The Lord of Tantai also knew. In any case, she would not give up the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. Yang Chun, the Green Jade Immortal Island, want to order a batch of these 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. You name a price. After thinking about it, the island master could only go straight to the point and talk about it face to face. Other methods of beating around the bush and selling secrets were all useless. As long as Yang Chun pretended to be stupid, in the end, the Green Jade Immortal Island would have to make it clear. Island Master, now the Green Jade Immortal Island is not rich. Let's not waste resources to buy these 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, right? Yang Chun slowly opened his mouth and put on a very thoughtful posture for the Green Jade Immortal Island. He said earnestly, let's focus our resources on the most basic needs first. Not rich. Where did this come from? The Lord of Tantai was stunned and asked without thinking about it. As soon as he said it, he realized his mistake, but it was too late to change it. Island Master doesn't have to hide it. Speaking of it, this younger generation junior is not an outsider and will never disclose it. Yang Chun still had that calm tone, but the content of the words was a bit unpleasant. If it is rich, Shanshan's portion will not be reduced so much. Even Shanshan herself has to do those dangerous tasks to earn spirit stones for the sect. This younger generation junior still has some spirit stones here. If the Island Master doesn't mind this younger generation junior, please accept it. This is also a small thing for Shanshan's sect. As he said, Yang Chun took out a Chinquin bag, put on the table, and then gently pushed it in front of the Lord of Tantai. Including the Lord of Tantai, all the high-level members of the Green Jade Immortal Island were flushed. Yang Chen's affectation was simply a slap in their faces, and it was the kind of loud sound.